Top stories. We'll get to a weather forecast as well as a traffic report on this very last day of 2025. President Trump has confirmed that the U.S. did take military action on a dock in Venezuela, said to be the dispatch point for drug smuggling to the U.S. The attack appears to be a drone. Here's retired U.S. Army Colonel Seth Krumich, who spoke with ABC News.
It sounds like this was a CIA strike earlier in the month at this logistics port hub that is facilitating the narco network. Now, what's truly unique about this is normally covert actions stay covert. The president has come out and said, hey, we did this.
Now, back in Nashville, the FBI has released more than 200 pages of documents on the Covenant School shooting.
Fox 17 says these new documents reveal chilling details about the Covenant School shooter's motives. Notes that show the school was chosen for being private, Christian, and, quote, not well known, with the shooter writing, quote, hate religion. The files also mention other mass shootings and include comments about gun control, calling the Second Amendment, quote, on life support, and then blasting, quote, Biden's horrible gun plans. The tragedy claims 6 lives, 3 of them children. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the market numbers report. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. You can find them online at beaconcm.com. Let's get a recap of yesterday's closing money news.
Another down day for markets, with tech companies and the latest Federal Reserve meeting minutes influencing stocks. The Dow lost 94 points. The S&P was nearly even. The Nasdaq dipped 55 points. Nvidia and Apple wobbled between small losses and breaking even. The Fed's December meeting minutes shows that there was a division between members over the decision to cut interest rates as it deals with uncertainty about the threats facing the economy. Inflation remains stubbornly high. While the jobs market has slowed down, the Fed has signaled more caution moving forward. On the winning side of Wall Street was Facebook parent Meta, which announced it's buying artificial intelligence startup Manus. A federal judge has ruled the White House cannot stop funding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This decision comes just days before the Bureau would have run out of money. And the IRS is increasing the standard mileage rate for business vehicles by 2.5 cents starting January 1st.
Let's take a look at the stock futures before the opening bell. The Dow is down 77, the S&P down 18 1/4, and the Nasdaq, it's down 96 3/4. That's the latest news. Traffic, weather, they're all on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Well, our traffic report, the good news, there is no traffic. Yes, it is nice and smooth and clear on this last day of 2025. Let's hope it stays that way. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is 5 minutes, almost 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, and it is the last day, as you heard Jay Harper say, and good morning to you, Jay. Good to have you in the house today.
Same to you, Brian. Thank you.
Just a little programming note, the reason Joan is not here is that she's going to be filling in for Chad Benson later today. So, I would encourage you to tune in and listen to Joan. I think she does that quite well. But it's good to have you, Jay. Sam is pushing the blinky buttons, and I am not Dan Mandis. I am Brian Wilson, filling in for Dan, and he'll be back next year. Next Monday, actually. So buckle up, everybody. Let's get this last show of 2025 going here with a conversation about what is going on in Minnesota and all of this Somalian fraud that we've been reporting. I mean, if you look at at the places I go for news, my proprietary blend of websites and information that I draw from for broadcast. It is overwhelmingly the big story. Everybody's talking about Somalian fraud and the Leering Center. They, by the way, that learning, the Quality Leering Center, they misspelled. It's supposed to be the Quality Learning Center, but they misspelled the name of the sign. They didn't know how to spell learning. Wasn't a lot of learning going on at the Leering Center, I imagine. They left out the end. Yesterday, they fixed it. They changed the sign because people were having so much fun and mocking them for it. But what's going on? Let me bring you up to date on some stuff here. I'll start with this. Senator Eric Schmidt is a Republican senator, U.S. senator from the state of Minnesota. And he says that we have only begun to scratch the surface on the amount of fraud and corruption there is in this Somali scandal.
There's two issues. The first is we're seeing, I think, just sadly, the tip of the iceberg of this fraud from these Somali strongholds in the United States. It's in Minnesota. You talked about Maine. You talked about Ohio. This is a scam that reaches far and wide, and I'm kind of tired of the talk. This is a broader legal immigration problem. We talk a lot about illegal immigration, but this is a legal immigration problem. So from my perspective, under 18 U.S.C. 1343, the wire fraud statute, there ought to be prosecutions immediately. Every visa that can be revoked should be revoked. Every deportation that should happen right away. And in some cases where necessary, denaturalization should happen. A strong signal should be sent to immigrant communities that if you're going to come here and fleece the American taxpayer, we're actually going to prioritize taxpayers over this toxic empathy that's dominated the Democrat Party. Secondly, you talked about some of the COVID fraud abuse. The Biden administration, Jason, pushed so much money out the door for causes and issues that were never related to COVID. I think you're going to see another wave of this fraud, and you have to have state AGs who are serious about it, and hopefully President Trump's U.S. attorneys, when those state AGs don't step up, do it as well. But I think Congress certainly plays a role, but I'm sort of done with the talking. This is about prosecutions now. This is about putting people in jail that have taken billions of dollars, billions of dollars. This is part of an immigration system that is tilted against the American people. If you're, a working class American that sees this, you're right to be frustrated with your government. And I think this is an opportunity to regain the trust of the American people and go after this fraud.
And, this is a good issue for conservatives and Republicans that we're going to ferret out all the fraud. But it's becoming increasingly clear that during the Biden reign and his administration, they were just pumping out money to try to secure votes for the coming election to anybody they could give money to at your taxpayer expense. And there weren't a lot of checks and balances on that money. They weren't following up. And there is, I think we're going to find, as Senator Schmidt said, there was rampant fraud and corruption. taxpayer dollars were being wasted on things that were not providing any benefit for the people who pay taxes. And as a taxpayer, that hacks me off. I mean, it really does. So, and I know it does you too. Let's see what we got. He said we need prosecutions. There have been some prosecutions and more prosecutions coming. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the quote she put out yesterday was, "Buckle up, lawmakers. We have more prosecutions coming." It's interesting she said lawmakers. Does she believe that some politicians might go down? I hope that happens. I hope if there are politicians who turn a blind eye to this corruption, that there is some way to prosecute them. Here's the more detail from that. Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced that 85 people of Somali descent are among those charged in a continuing fraud probe in Minnesota. She noted the Department of Justice has been examining the Democrat-run state for months, with more prosecutions anticipated. In an X post, Bondi praised citizen journalist Nick Shirley for revealing the magnitude of fraud in Minnesota during Governor Tim Walz's tenure. Shirley's work has helped show America the scale of fraud in Tim Walz's Minnesota. So far, we have charged 98 individuals, and of the 98 individuals, 85 are of Somali descent, and more than 60 have already been found guilty in court. So they've been on it. But I mean, this viral video from I think he's 23-year-old Nick Shirley has really caught people's attention. He shared a video featuring multiple daycare centers in Minnesota that reportedly receive millions in federal funding yet appear to have no children present. And of course, the one that stands out is the Quality Leering Center in South Minneapolis, whose misspelled sign has become emblematic of the scandal. Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Kash Patel confirmed an ongoing active investigation, pointing out that the Bureau has already boosted staffing and resources in Minnesota before the issue gained widespread attention on social media. Patel stressed the FBI's focus on breaking up major fraud operations that target federal programs. This, according to the National Pulse, but it's been reported in a lot of different other places. The Trump administration has wasted no time in freezing child care payments to Minnesota while they try to sort this all out. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says it has frozen all child care payments in the state of Minnesota as the FBI and Department of Homeland Security investigate allegations of fraud, including at child care centers, in the latest show of federal force in the state, home of the country's largest Somali population. Deputy Secretary of HHS Jim O'Neill announced the funding freeze on X after ICE launched operations in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area to specifically target undocumented Somali immigrants, precipitated by revelations about widespread fraud, as you know. In addition to demanding a state office of the Minnesota daycare centers featured in the video, O'Neill said the agency would now require justification and receipts or photo evidence for all payments to states from the Department's Administration of Children and Families. Funds will only be released when states proved that the money is being spent legitimately. I love this. Finally, Minnesota receives $185 million in federal child care funding for 19,000 children. The announcement did not specify any alternate plans for families across the state will be affected. So there you have it. We are starting to crack down, and I think this is a good issue. I mean, I will give you just sort of looking at the politics of all of this. Americans are I think a little frustrated about the economy, although I think the economy is fundamentally sound, and other people agree with me. I think the Democrats have found a wedge issue with this idea of affordability. But I'll tell you, nothing nothing gets the ire of the American voter up like seeing their hard-earned taxpayer dollars, money that they sent to the government and during their tax season, being wasted through fraud and abuse and corruption. And it appears that it ran pretty rampant in Minnesota, and that the people in charge sort of knew it was going on. We'll make some noise like we care, but they really weren't very serious about investigating these matters, because the Somali vote is something that they want, and they didn't want to irritate the Somali voters in the last election. So they were buying votes. That's what this is all about. I think when this is writ large and you look at this, you're going to find that the big story here is that the Biden administration was just doing everything it could to purchase votes in the run-up to the last presidential election. I mean, that's really, I think, what it's all about. Got to stop right here to get a quick look at what's going on with... No, we don't do that here, do we? We don't do this here. We keep going. All right, I'm sorry. I always forget that. But I'll tell you, it's going to be cold. Continuing on, DHS and ICE investigators are going door to door to crack down on suspected Minneapolis scammers. The Department of Homeland Security have begun going door to door in Minneapolis, cracking down on suspected scammers tied to an explosive child care welfare scheme, the department confirmed. And you can see the videos. Everybody has seen these videos if you have been looking. Secretary Kristi Noem posted one such video on X, indicating that federal agents, including those from DHS and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, hitting the streets to confront operators of so-called ghost daycares, empty facilities that have allegedly siphoned off massive sums of fraudulent claims. This according to redstate.com. The DHS secretary indicated there'll be more of these kinds of investigations being launched, and I think they're going to find a whole lot of stuff here. Here is, by the way, State Representative Kristen Robbins talking on Fox News about this. She's a state rep. She's running for governor in the state as a Republican. And here's her thought about where this thing stands.
I called for the governor to resign several weeks ago. I just think his dereliction of duty is unconscionable. These whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm for years. We've had hearings for almost a year now, holding his agencies accountable. He's not fired anyone. He's not taken steps to stop the fraud on the front end, and he continues to make excuses. So he is responsible. He has turned a blind eye for 7 years, and we need to clean house in the executive branch. So we have to get a handle on this. These are taxpayer dollars that have been stolen from our taxpayers and that have should be helping vulnerable citizens, not fake students, not fake recipients, and getting sent overseas.
There you go. And the deportations need to take place as well. To say that there has been no reporting on this stuff is not completely accurate. I mean, I think it got a lot of attention when this video started getting like 100 million views from the young 23-year-old citizen journalist. But some other news organizations have been on this. Here is KARE TV reporter Lou Ragusi in an X posting he put up yesterday.
The state of Minnesota has investigated daycare fraud in the past with very mixed results. For 4 years, I tracked the investigation into 4 different daycares. DHS, the Department of Human Services, referred the first case to the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, because they documented overbilling. The BCA says their surveillance found Sunshine Child Care Center and 2 others they started investigating billed taxpayers for twice as many kids as they served through the Child Care Assistance Program.
That's interesting because, you know, if they have some kids there, then they can look more legitimate. But it's in the billing process, and they claim, well, we had, instead of 12 kids, we had 24 kids. Hitting up for bigger money, but they were phantom kids.
But charges were never filed in these cases. Look at this. The lead agent from the BCA partially blamed the DHS, the department that referred the case, saying DHS wouldn't share needed documentation because they didn't want to act as an arm of the BCA.
We're talking about the DHS, I think, in the last administration.
Now, 2 of these daycare owners are suing the state, claiming they were discriminated against for being Somali. Here's their attorney.
There's no indication that any other childcare centers owned by any other group was targeted even for investigation.
Did your clients fudge the numbers and get reimbursements for more kids than they were actually caring for?
No. And if they had, they'd be really foolish to be doing this, right?
The state filed a motion to dismiss that lawsuit in federal court. The judge is still deciding.
Wow. See, I don't think they were very serious about it. I don't think they really wanted to know. Yeah, there might be, but I don't want to really investigate it. I'm just going to irritate a lot of people. I'll tell you who's irritated. The American taxpayer is pretty irritated right now. There is this. Minnesota is probably not the only place where this is going on. I think it may be the worst example, certainly, but there are other places that I think are going to be investigated as well. And there's a common theme here. They all seem to be under the control of Democrats. Attorney General Pam Bondi issued the first slate of indictments, according to townhall.com, most of whom are Somali descent. It's a Great Lakes smash and grab for sure. Food charities used as fronts for fraud schemes, Medicare fraud, and of course a network of children daycare centers with no kids enrolled but still collecting millions in fun, at least $9 billion. And now Ohio might be the next hotbed of mayhem. Federal agents are investigating fraud claims within Somali-owned daycare centers in Minnesota, according to a social media post by the federal government. Audit America, Audit Ohio now, said Mahek Cook, who elaborated further on the home health racket that appears to be scamming hundreds of thousands of people. The state will, as long as the doctors approve it, continue to pay you. Could be for 10 hours, 12 hours, up to 24 when it's critical care. You could sit at home without caring for an elderly parent who really doesn't need it, making $75,000 to $90,000 a year. Now you add 2 parents, that's $180,000. Now you add your in-laws, that's $250,000. I mean, it sounds like this is going to be something that, number one, it's just the right thing to do to investigate this stuff and put a close to it. But there is a political benefit. The public will reward Republicans for going after fraud and corruption and abuse of taxpayers' money. Nothing hacks off the American voter more than seeing their money wasted on fraud, corruption, and abuse. It just destroys people's faith in government if there's any of that left. I don't know that there is. We'll call it 23 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, some humanitarian organizations in Israel may be at risk, and security at Times Square a priority on this New Year's Eve. Again, we'll have that coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
28 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Nashville Morning News. Hope you're having a good morning, a good start to your New Year's Eve. And I hope that you have a good and safe holiday with friends and family as we celebrate the end of 2025 and anticipate the arrival of 2026. So there is where we are today. We were talking about the Somali crime, an interesting story from the New York Post that I think really tells you a little bit more about what's going on in this country as a result of the Biden's opening up of the borders and letting people in willy-nilly. Activists claim that illegal aliens commit crimes at lower rates than native-born Americans, and that is being sort of blown up by new data from New York State that shows that those here illegally commit crimes at a rate more than 3 times higher than that of legal residents. I'm not making it up. It's true that if you lump all immigrants together, relatively few of them are accused and convicted of crimes committed in the United States because legal immigrants do commit crimes at very low rates. So combining their crime data with that of illegal immigrants makes the numbers sort of skewed. Now, fresh data from the Department of Homeland Security offers a fresh look at this question. The department claims that 7,113 of those currently incarcerated in New York State prisons and jails are illegal immigrants. They have been convicted of committing 148 homicides, 717 assaults, 134 burglaries, 106 robberies, 235 dangerous drug offenses, 152 weapon offenses, and 260 sexual predatory offenses, among other crimes. What's more, New York's failure to honor U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement detainers has resulted in the release of nearly 7,000 criminal illegal aliens since January. They wouldn't tell ICE they were going to be released, and they just slipped back into society where they can do it all over again. Altogether, roughly 50,000 people are incarcerated in New York State prisons and about 32,000 in New York State prisons, another 18,000 in the state's county jails. That means that illegal aliens currently incarcerated make up about 14% of New York's total inmate population, and that's probably an underestimate because the state doesn't actively identify immigration status. So apparently it could be higher, but that's the way it looks right now. On that note, 31 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, time for the news with Jay Harper.
It is indeed 5:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get to that weather forecast as well as a traffic report here in just a moment. Israel on Tuesday saying it will suspend dozens of humanitarian organizations, including Doctors Without Borders and CARE, from operating in Gaza beginning tomorrow. They're doing that for failing to comply with new registration rules. Israel says the rules are aimed at preventing Hamas and other militant groups from infiltrating the aid organizations. Claire Sanfilippo with the group MSF, also known as Doctors Without Borders, comments.
This would effectively block MSF from operating in Gaza, where we support 1 in 5 hospital beds and 1 in 3 births. If MSF is prevented from working in Gaza, it will deprive hundreds of thousands of people from accessing medical care.
Back here in the U.S., final preparations ahead of New Year's celebrations from coast to coast, the weather and security being priorities. In New York's Times Square, police are using more technology than ever to keep everyone safe. Here's retired FBI agent and ABC News contributor Richard Frankel.
They've enhanced both using video and AI surveillance of the Times Square area to know what's going on, to have real-time intelligence determining where people are, who's coming through the crowds. If anything happens, they're immediately able to zoom in on it, and they're able to send in police, FBI, SWAT teams, emergency medical services.
Happening now in Tennessee. A state lawmaker thinks you should be able to grow your own weed in your own home. Memphis Democratic State Representative Antonio Parkinson tells TV Channel 5 that his Freedom to Farm Act would let adults grow up to 15 plants for personal use.
And for them to be able to grow it and supply themselves and not depend on our health care system, not depend on government or anyone else, and to keep government and our tax system and everyone out of their business.
Parkinson does say, however, that selling marijuana would still be illegal. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. We are looking fine and dandy on this December 31 at 5:37 in the morning. Nothing happening traffic-wise. Keep in mind, though, that around Bicentennial Mall, you've got some road closures down there as they anticipate Nashville's Big Bash tonight for the New Year's Eve celebration. But other than that, we're looking good. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 38 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air for the vacationing Dan Mandis. It's not really a vacation because he's been working the overnight doing the Red Eye Radio thing. But I am in the place today. He'll be back on Monday. So Dan will return next year. All right. So having said all that, I want to move into a little bit something, different. Let's be honest about it, folks. In this week between Christmas and New Year's, sometimes there's just not a lot of news. I mean, the Somalian thing has been the major story, and we have been on that pretty big. But, there are a lot of, sort of a slow time for news coverage. It's funny, when reporters go on vacation, and a lot of reporters do go on vacation this time of year to use up whatever time they have left in the till, in most news organizations, it's use it or lose it, and so they take time, and so really the level of reporting really deteriorates to some degree. But I've got a mishmash of unrelated stories that I think are sort of interesting that I'd like to share with you now. You ready? Here's one you may not have heard. George Clooney, Looney Clooney, and his wife Amal have become French citizens. Did you know this? The French government listed their names in the naturalization decree published Saturday. Amal Clooney is a prominent human rights lawyer, was listed under her maiden name, while the other three listed as Clooney's. That's George Clooney and his children. In an interview with Esquire magazine in October, he said he was concerned about raising his children in Hollywood, and he described the family farm in France as their primary resident. He's got a villa in Italy, and he's got a farm in France. I don't know. Does he have any property in the United States anymore? We live on a farm in France. A good portion of my life growing up was on a farm, and as a kid, I hated the whole idea of it, he told the Hollywood Star. But now, for them, it's like, hey, they're not on their iPads, they have dinner with grown-ups, and they have to take their dishes from the table, and they have a much better life. And he said he was worried about raising his kids in L.A. in the culture of Hollywood. Is there anybody who's more the culture of Hollywood than George Clooney? He's, of course, a very leftist-leaning actor who's gotten active in politics. It is not clear whether George Clooney kept his American citizenship. Amal Clooney was born in Lebanon, raised in the United Kingdom. Their daughters were born in London, according to the Associated Press. Beyonce is a billionaire. I'm not making this up. Beyonce is a billionaire following the success of her Cowboy Carter tour. Forbes declared on Monday the Grammy Award-winning star is only the fifth musician to make Forbes' billionaire list. Who are some of the others? You ready? Do you have any guesses on this, Sam?
Taylor Swift.
Yep, she is a billionaire.
And Kanye West.
No, don't see him on the list. Here we have it. It is. Excuse me. It is Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Rihanna is a billionaire. I wouldn't have guessed that. Bruce Springsteen is a billionaire, and Beyonce's husband Jay-Z is a billionaire. She saw her journey to billionaire status in 2023. Her 2023 Renaissance World Tour grossed nearly $600 million. The Cowboy Carter thing made $400 million in ticket sales. and another $50 million in merchandise sales. The merch. They make a lot of money on the merch. Beyonce, a billionaire. This is a little scary, especially if you're traveling around the country during this holiday season. The world's most contagious virus has been detected at 2 major U.S. airports amid holiday traffic. Measles is apparently, a case of measles was identified in a passenger in terminals B and C on December 12th, according to the New Jersey Department of Health at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. Measles symptoms include a high fever, cough, runny nose, watery red eyes, and a rash that usually appear between 3 to 5 days after symptoms begin. I'm trying to remember. I think I had the measles when I was a kid. We had a whole bunch of things that we had back when I was a kid. You had chicken pox. You had measles, and you had mumps. I know I had chicken pox. I'm not sure about the measles, but it's a bad one. Measles can stay in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person leaves the area. Officials asking those who suspect that they were exposed or are coming down with symptoms of measles to call their health provider before visiting a medical center or hospital. In other words, if you think you got the measles, and there has been several outbreaks around the country of measles of late because a lot of people don't want to take the vaccine. And, I won't make any judgment about that. But, measles is not good. About 8 million travelers expected to fly across America in some form or another during the holiday season. 11 confirmed cases of measles in New Jersey. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is of great concern to doctors and healthcare providers. Interesting story here. I think this is happening in a lot of the schools in our area and in the state of Tennessee. I think this is the policy. It ought to be nationwide policy because it's working. And what am I talking about? In school classrooms around the country, they are finding that phone bans have a positive impact. Large urban district in Florida saw an increase in student test scores, and a smaller school district in rural California is experiencing dramatic decline in student behavioral problems. The reason for both, the absence of smartphones in the classroom. Early data on the effects of school phone bans confirm what teachers and administrators long suspected, that phones in the classroom were the primary culprit behind bad behavior and low engagement. When you have 267 incidents of threats and physical injury in the first 10 weeks of school, that's a serious problem, said April Moore, superintendent of Sierra Sands Unified School District near California's Mojave Desert. She was talking about last year's disciplinary problems. Students were using their phones to plan bathroom vaping meetups, gossip sessions, and fights. When behaviors escalate at an invisible space, we can't prevent them or react fast enough. She presides over a district of about 5,000 students. Since a district-wide ban on cell phone use during instructional class time went into effect this fall, surprise, 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 the problems, the behavioral problems decreased dramatically. Incidents involving threats and physical injury in the first 10 weeks of the school year declined by almost half. The number of disciplinary actions for harassment dropped by nearly 83%. Total suspensions were down 69%. Moore said the district won't have data on how the ban has affected academic performance, but if it's what's happening in other places, you'll see a very positive move. It wasn't until states began mandating school districts to develop phone policies that more uniform enforcement began. As of this past month, 37 states have enacted some kind of school phone law or policy. In California, the 2024 School Free Zone Act mandated that districts have until July of 26 to develop policies. I think that's a good idea. And so grades, what do we know about what's going on in schools right now? Kids aren't learning. And scores are scores are going down on the testing that they do. And, you know, why not just put a ban in place? I mean, there are some people who think that, you know, that, well, I want to be able to get a hold of my kid. I get that. But like what they normally do is like in the fifth grade classroom where students have phones, fifth graders with phones, where student phones were placed in a shoe rack. All of a sudden, a cell phone rang. It immediately interrupted the flow and changed the whole dynamic of the room. But they say their campuses are much calmer now that they have banned the phones in school. You know, you can do it. Maybe you can do it during lunch. Maybe you can do it during, you know, if there's a recess. I don't know. I can't get over this thing. Fifth graders with phones. Really?
And
Really?
smart ones at that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Expensive phones. I don't know. But I like the idea. Again, this is a mishmash of stories, so none of these really relate one to the other. Here's another one. MSNBC, which is now MS Now, right? They recently decided to rebrand and change its name to MS Now. I look at their website every morning just to see what the other side is saying. And it is, I mean, it is absolutely the resting place for those with TDS. It's all about how much they hate Trump. And so, you know, you think that maybe it would find an audience because there's a lot of people out there, you know, a little less than half of America hates Trump, apparently, if you look at the last election. But their numbers are in the toilet since this rebranding. Fox News ending the year on a high note, scoring its best ratings ever in a non-election year while giving primetime broadcast networks a run for their money. They're actually, and when I was at Fox, I was in year 2 through year 12, or no, year 14. That was the years that I was in Fox. And it's been a long time since I was there. But I will tell you this, we got excited when we beat SpongeBob SquarePants. We thought that was great. We thought, hey, man, we're on a roll now. We beat SpongeBob SquarePants in the ratings. But really, they are now knocking on the door of destroying the major networks. I never thought in a million years that Fox, a cable channel, would overtake the networks, but they are, according to Nielsen Media Research. Fox News averages about 2.72 million primetime viewers and 287,000 viewers in the key adult demo. This is adults 25-54. That was up 14% and 18% in the demo. If you know anything about broadcast ratings, the demo is highly sought after. These are people thought to have money. I've always thought there was a bunch of, you know, here's my term for the ratings. But I will tell you, because I've always thought that older people had money and you ought to, you know, go for where the money is. They got money to spend, but they go after this 25-54 demo, and it is destroying. MSNBC now has about their total viewers are down 25%. CNN averages about 580,000 total viewers. I mean, on a good day with a lot of news here in Middle Tennessee, this radio station may well have more listeners than CNN has viewers. Nationwide, down 15%, down 29% in the demo. So I know that's a lot of gobbledygook people don't, but I mean, what it really, the headline here is Fox News is crushing it. CNN dying on the vine. MSNBC, after a big rebrand, now calling it MS Now, has just in the tank. It's not working. Americans are not buying what they're putting out there. 52 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Coming up at the top of the hour, federal daycare funding in Minnesota taking a hit. And Venezuela, they're taking a different kind of hit. We'll explain. That's coming up at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So again, some of these stories, they don't really go together, but this is just sort of fun. If you buy stuff on Amazon, one of the things I love about Amazon is that things that I used to go to Radio Shack for, there are no Radio Shacks. You can get them on Amazon delivered to the house, and you can, any oddball thing that you need, you can almost find it on Amazon, and buy it in a few days. It arrives on your front porch. But things you can't find anywhere else. Here is an article that I found at FoxNews.com about the weirdest things you can buy on Amazon. I mean, you're going to love this, Sam. Here's a $39. You can have a shock potato. Now, what is a shock potato? It's a plastic potato-looking thing with all of these metal studs around it. And what you do is you toss it back and you start it, and then you toss it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and until it shocks somebody.
A hot potato.
It's a hot potato, but they call it a shock potato. I thought that was pretty weird. For $9.99, you can get a yodeling pickle. We've all thought we can improve our yodeling skills if we had a singing pickle to train us, right? This battery-powered singing cucumber is the perfect gag gift for an exciting item to your pickle-obsessed friends to add to their collection. Are there people who are obsessed about pickles?
There is a portion of the population that loves their pickles. I am one of them, but I would not. Give me the Billy Mouth bass on the wall before I'll.
A yodeling pickle.
Yodeling pickle.
Here, a lot of people say you should have the sleep masks because, you need to sleep in a darker room as possible. Everything, sleep becomes something that you study when you've done a lot of early morning radio and television. They say get a sleep mask. They got a sleep mask that looks like your eyes are still open.
It's a little creepy.
That's creepy. I mean, how would you like to roll over to, in the middle of the night to your loved one and have those eyeballs staring at you?
No, thank you.
You can get a vending machine, a full-size vending machine for just $4,300. For $14.99, when somebody says, what do you want for, no, I don't want anything. I don't want anything. Nothing. They give you a box of nothing for $14.99. The perfect gift for a friend who says they don't want. The gift comes in a dome-shaped package with absolutely nothing inside. This is the most bizarre one. Bacon-shaped bandages. You got a little cut. You just go and get a Band-Aid that looks like a slice of bacon.
That's not going to confuse the dog at all.
You can't make this stuff up. I love this one. A throw blanket, he's cuddling on the couch with the missus, and you want to use a little cold, so you grab a little throw to, to sort of warm you up. This one looks like a tortilla, gigantic tortilla.
I love it.
A banana phone, a shoulder bag that looks like buttered toast, and a snail that dispenses soap. Just a few of the things you can buy on Amazon. Listen, we'll be back with some serious news right after the news with Jay Harper. It is almost 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis.
It is 6 a.m., and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, traffic, and weather coming up. Dozens of people have already been convicted in Minnesota for stealing millions in taxpayer money meant to help those in need. And now a viral video is prompting action from the White House. A self-proclaimed independent journalist released a video claiming some daycares receiving public funds were not actually providing anything. Here's ABC's Nicole D'Antonio with more.
The Trump administration now says it's pausing all federal child care payments to Minnesota amid allegations of widespread fraud in the state. The move blocks $185 million in funding to daycares provided by Health and Human Services. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz firing back, accusing President Trump of, quote, politicizing the issue to defund programs that help Minnesotans, adding, we've spent years cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along.
The first known U.S. attack on Venezuelan soil has escalated tensions in the Caribbean. The attack was reportedly a drone strike carried out by the CIA, which has been operating covertly in Venezuela. President Trump saying the strike destroyed a dock where drugs were allegedly being loaded onto ships. Here's ABC's contributor and former State Department official Steve Ganyard.
The Venezuelan economy depends on two things, oil and cocaine. And so the president has already set up a quarantine of oil coming out of Venezuela. So he's just being consistent here and going after the cocaine that also supports much of the Venezuelan economy.
And if you notice, gasoline prices shooting up by about 40 cents a gallon in the last couple of days. Well, that Venezuelan oil embargo is probably the cause. The FBI has released more than 200 pages of documents on the Covenant School shooting.
Fox 17 says these new documents reveal chilling details about the Covenant School shooter's motives, notes that show the school was chosen for being private, Christian, and, quote, not well known, with the shooter writing, quote, hate religion. The files also mention other mass shootings and include comments about gun control, calling the Second Amendment, quote, on life support, and then blasting, quote, Biden's horrible gun plans. The tragedy claims 6 lives, 3 of them children. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Now let's take a look at the market numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They're online at beaconcm.com. The stock futures this morning, the Dow down 75, the S&P, it's down 14 1/4, the Nasdaq down 71 3/4. That's the latest news, traffic and weather. They're next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. At 5 minutes past 6 a.m., no accidents, no breakdowns on this New Year's Eve, and no significant backups in the Nashville metro. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock now on Super Talk 99.7. It's New Year's Day. I am Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who returns on Monday to his rightful position here on the radio station. And I will scoot off to relative obscurity here in Watertown. I don't know. I don't think I'm scheduled to be on anytime soon in the near future. But, I'm glad to fill in while the people who work very hard every day are taking a little well-deserved rest. And during the holidays. It is New Year's Eve. So you got to get things ready. You got to have your black-eyed peas tomorrow. Get ready for that. But a lot of people are going to go downtown for the big New Year's Eve note drop. And I've gone to this thing in years past. It is a very cool thing. I will not be going to this one. I tell you, it is a thing. I can't believe how many people show up for this thing. It's shoulder to shoulder down there. So if you're going, there's a few things you need to know. Thousands of people, this is Fox 17, thousands of people prepare to ring in the new year downtown. City leaders say the safety planning is in full swing. Metro Nashville police will be highly visible across downtown, Bicentennial Mall State Park, and the Gulch during Nashville's Big Bash. And now the Nashville Department of Emergency Communications says it also will be fully staffed for one of the city's largest nights of the year. So here's what you need to know. Country superstars Lainey Wilson, Jason Aldean, and Bailey Zimmerman will headline the Jack Daniels New Year's Eve Live, Nashville's Big Bash at Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park. Gates open at 5:30, no charge, free and open to the public. That is a wonderful thing that they do, actually. Headliners expected to start performing at 7 Central Time. Show concludes at 12:30. And, of course, the highlight is the iconic Music City Note Drop, which returns to kick off the new year. Only clear bags will be permitted inside Bicentennial Mall State Park. Backpack coolers, duffel bags, and other items will simply not be allowed. If you show up with those things, you will be sent away. Attendees are encouraged to review the event's house rules and prohibited items list before heading downtown. The Department of Emergency Communications announced it has activated its Nashville Telecommunicator Emergency Response Team. Tactical dispatchers will work side by side with police, fire, and emergency medical services. So they're taking it very seriously. Road closures. Several roads around Bicentennial Mall, north of Jefferson Street, will be closed, including 5th Avenue North, 6th Avenue North, 7th Avenue North, Junior Gilliam Way. Downtown Broadway will be closed from John Lewis Way to 1st Avenue. Rideshare locations will be at 4th Avenue and Representative John Lewis Way, Rosa Parks Boulevard, Jefferson Street, 6th Avenue, and you'll have a lot of police on hand, and I think we need it. Look, I don't want to be a nervous Nelly. I don't want to be that guy who worries too much. But boy, I got to tell you, if you have been following the news lately, you have seen the FBI cracking down on a lot of people who intended to create mayhem on New Year's Eve. So I'm glad we're going to have a heavy police presence. Please keep your head on a swivel. Absolutely keep your looking around. And most importantly, if you get a nagging feeling about something or somebody, don't bury that feeling. These feelings, quite frankly, if you feel like concerned about someone, you should trust that instinct. And if you see something, the old saying is say something. And really, honestly, that's every citizen's responsibility during these big events. Keep an eye out for what's going on around you. I was always sort of amazed that, you go through these big events and people are blissfully unaware of everything that's going on around them. So keep your head on a swivel, be very careful, but don't let the terrorists win. I don't know how you do both, but I've decided I'm going to stay home with Cabana Wife and have my last drink for a long time. More on that later. Hemp-derived cannabinoid. I can't ever say this word. How do you say it? Do you know how to say this word, Sam?
Cannabinoid.
Cannabinoid?
Cannabinoid.
Cannabinoid. I can never get the right emphasis on the correct syllable. Tennessee Department of Agriculture has clarified an upcoming shift in regulation over hemp-derived THC. Regulation over HDC will transfer from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture in the new year to the Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission. The TDA says to make this transition as smooth as possible, they have entered into an agreement. Okay, blah, 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 blah. But it is changing, and that is something that you need to be aware of. Also, in the state of Tennessee and a bunch of other states, there are 18 some states that are now enacting waivers prohibiting the purchase of certain foods through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. This is all Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his idea to make America healthy again. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins is urging states to strip foods regarded as unhealthy from the $100 billion federal program, commonly known as food stamps, that serves some 42 million Americans. There are 330 million Americans, and 42 million of them are on food stamps. We cannot continue a system that forces taxpayers to fund programs that make people sick and pay a second time to treat the illnesses those very programs help create, said Kennedy in a statement in December. The efforts are aimed at reducing chronic diseases such as obesity, diabetes, associated with sweetened drinks and other treats. Retail industry and health policy experts said state SNAP programs already under pressure from steep budget cuts are unprepared for the complex changes, with no complete list of the foods affected and technical point-of-sale challenges that vary by state and store. So, but I know that Tennessee is going to do this. They're going to do it in a big way. I'm for this, quite frankly. I think it's a good idea. Look, if we give you money because you can't put food on the table, at least buy food that is nutritious, not junk food. And you're going to hear a lot of people crying and moaning and wailing and gnashing of teeth about all this. I can't get soda. I can't get this. You know what? I don't want anybody to go hungry. I mean, I really don't. I think the system is rife with abuse and fraud, and I think when I go down to the Dollar General, I see somebody whip out the EBD card. I don't have any judgment about that person, but it's interesting when you glance over what's in the basket. Not good stuff in many cases. So if we're going to provide money to people for food, let's get real food. I don't think that's too much to ask, and I generally don't like Big Brother looking over them. But I mean, if you want that food, find the money for it. And by the way, most of the people I see whipping out the EBD card don't look like they've missed a meal, in my opinion. So there's that. So I'll move on. But get ready, because if you rely on food stamps. And again, I don't want anybody to go hungry. I don't want any kid to go to bed without food. There are places where you can get food. There are food banks that will, in some places, the food banks will deliver food to you if you can't go. Here in Watertown, I know of 2 or 3 places where you can go and get food if you can't put food on the table. I think that's the better way to go. But at the end of the day, if you're going to use the food stamps and you need the food stamps, at least buy food that's nutritious, okay? A lot of other things going on in the new year. I'll get to more of that in just a moment. Right now, 15 minutes past the hour. Take a quick look at what's going on with weather and traffic. Look, the forecast is calling for a high today of 47. Right now, it's 25 degrees. No real wind out there, so there's not a feel-like temperature. But it is plenty cold. And if you're interested, I did a little research to find out what the expected temperature will be in Nashville at midnight when the ball drops or when the note drops. It'll be 34 degrees. So if you're going downtown and you're going to do that whole thing, good luck. But bundle up because when you're standing around in the cold for hours, it can really be bone chilling if you don't have the proper warmth, proper coat, proper gloves, a scarf, whatever. Put a hat on. Yeah, you should be okay. All right. Things happening in 2026. And one of them, it's hard to believe this is true. But tomorrow, Zoran Mamdani will become the communist mayor of New York City. He's appointing very controversial people to key positions within the city. You wouldn't know the names. I won't bore you with all of it, but the fire department chief and the people who will be in charge of his chief counsel, very controversially attorney. He's reporting Ramzi Kassim, who defended al-Qaeda terrorist Ahmed al-Darbi in court, will be the city's top attorney. He will take the oath of office on January 1st. So there you have that. It's hard to believe that New York City will be run by a communist. And I thought it was interesting that Trump met with him, and they made nice noises toward each other. I see this guy as inexperienced and not up for the job, and New York City needs a really good manager right now. But again, how in the world did we get to a place in America where our largest American city, New York, is going to be run by a guy who is actually just an absolute communist? It's just unbelievable to me. Many people will have a drink or two tonight. I've heard that happens on New Year's. I don't know, Sam, if you're going to have a drink tonight. If I do, it'll be my last drink for a while because I'm going to try, the dry January thing and see how it goes. I just don't drink enough to feel like I'll miss it. I think I just will be better off for it. So a lot of people are doing that. I was surprised because, I've been to Lower Broad. I was down there during the holidays. It's a lot of drinking going on, but a new report challenges the stereotype of Southerners as being heavy drinkers. This, according to the Tennessean, an analysis by Smart Asset determined which states spend the most per adult on alcohol. The study found the total state expenditure on alcohol and the year-over-year growth, the ranking based on data from the U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau of Economic Analysis. In the study, the top 10 states for spending were all outside the South. And we don't drink a lot in the South compared to other states around. You live in some of these states, it would drive you to drink, I'm pretty sure. If you lived in California, I think I'd be drinking full time. If I lived in Minneapolis, I'd be drinking full time. According to the Smart Asset study, Tennessee residents spent only, on average, what would you want to make a guess, Sam? I love it when, I put you on the spot, right? How much do you think the average Tennessee resident spends on alcohol in 2024?
2024?
Yeah, that's the latest statistics we have.
$1,200.36.
$693.70. That's the fifth lowest in the country.
Well, it's because we're making a lot of it in the hills.
Well, that may be true. No, I think it's the impact of religion and in the Deep South we are, we're the Bible Belt and many people don't drink at all. I don't have any moral concern about drinking as long as it's done in moderation. I just don't know that it's good for you. In total, the state spent $3.73 billion on alcohol in 24. That was up slightly from 2023. While Tennessee does not have the strictest laws in the country, it ranks number 28 for alcohol freedom. The most well-known alcohol-related legislation is the state's restrictions on sales and the times that you can buy liquor. In Tennessee, it's illegal to sell liquor other than beer at stores in unincorporated communities. I didn't know that. States that spend the least on alcohol, you ready? Number 1. Well, let's do it backwards. Number 10, Alabama. Number 9, Indiana. Kentucky, number 8. Idaho, number 7. Ohio, number 6. Tennessee, 5. Oklahoma, the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, number 4. Surprisingly, Mississippi, number 3. I thought those Mississippians drank. West Virginia is number 2. And number 1, not surprisingly, because of the influence of the Mormon religion on that state, Utah is number 1. But we're number 5, and a lot of these are southern states where, we always have the sort of the stereotype of somebody who, drinks being from the South and always sipping on bourbon, but apparently we don't drink a lot. Number 1 place in America for drinking, Alaska. I can imagine the long winters. Wyoming, Colorado, Massachusetts is number 4. Rhode Island, number 5. Then it goes New Hampshire, Oregon, Hawaii, Washington, Montana, number 10. But Alaska, they have heavy drinkers there. And let's see. Let me throw this in while I got a moment. Many people are trying out the dry January. I'm going to give it a shot and see if it makes any difference. In 2025, an estimated 15% of U.S. adults consider taking part, reflecting growing interest in mindful drinking and overall wellness. It doesn't have to feel like deprivation, punishment, or a test of willpower. And they say that, your body will go through some changes in that, and they could be very positive health changes in a very short period of time. Sort of like stopping smoking. They say if you stop smoking in a number of years, your body will recover and it won't be like you ever smoked before. So there's that. But they say that it will be, it says that by week 2 and 3, sleep and exercise patterns often continue to improve along with mental clarity. Alcohol affects brain function even in moderate amounts by slowing communication between brain cells, influencing judgment, coordination, and mood. I'll give it a shot. I mean, what have I got to lose? It's 23 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, federal daycare funding in Minnesota is being, it's being thwarted by the Trump administration. We'll have the latest. And the public in New Jersey, they can now feel safe as a wild animal that was on the loose has been contained. We'll have that story as well at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A full forecast and a traffic report are on the way. Minnesota child care funding has been frozen by the Trump administration after a conservative influencer went to daycare centers in Minneapolis' Somali communities and accused several locations of just running fake operations. Now, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is investigating if there are fraudulent claims of providing daycare, food, and other services with taxpayer money. Alex Adams is Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Children and Families under HHS. He posted this on X on Tuesday.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children.
The Minnesota Governor, Tim Walz, he responded to the funding freeze, saying his administration has been going after fraudsters and accused President Trump of, quote, politicizing the issues to defund programs that help Minnesotans. Well, the search for a wallaby in New Jersey has come to an end. Rex the wallaby is back home after a 24-hour adventure that ended with a stare down in a Walmart parking lot. How many of us have done that? Hey, ABC's Sophie Flay has more.
Clarissa Harper was picking up milk in Williamstown, New Jersey, when a 3-foot-tall animal hopped across her path.
And I'm leaving the parking lot and I look over, like something's hopping in front of my car. I couldn't contain my excitement for this, like whatever. I was like, it's a kangaroo.
Rex, who's actually a wallaby, escaped the Lots of Love Animal Sanctuary and Petting Zoo Monday. Volunteers then scouring the area. Drones were even used in the search.
That is the latest news. Yes, we have all the hot topics here on WTN. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Selling your home can be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. Get a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. There are no showings, no open houses, no stress. Work with the #1 real estate team in the U.S. and close with confidence. Go to markspain.com today.
At 6:35 on this New Year's Eve, things are looking smooth in the Nashville Metro. No accidents, no breakdowns, and no delays of any real impact. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 36 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It is Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air for the vacationing Dan Mandis. I don't know if you call working overnights on Red Eye Radio a vacation, but he'll be back in his rightful chair on Monday after the holiday, and we look forward to that. I want to continue a little bit about my concerns. And I don't want to be, I hesitate to do this because I don't want to be the nervous Nelly, but I can't help but feel like the Biden administration set us up for, really potentially dangerous stuff happening in this country. And let me run through some of the things that the Trump administration has done since they took over the FBI and the Department of Justice. They have been cracking down on terrorist plots, people who got into this country, some of them, and some of them who were just, domestic terrorists, etc., who had been planning attacks against the homeland. Listen to this. Over the past year, this is from the Epoch Times, over the past year, there have been at least 11 plots or attacks against U.S. targets that were inspired by ISIS, according to U.S. Central Command. Here's one. A Texas man alleged to be an ISIS sympathizer has been charged with an international terror offense for allegedly providing bomb-making components and funding to people he believed were acting on behalf of the terror outfit, the Department of Justice said in a statement on December 29th, just a couple days ago. John Michael Garza Jr. of Midlothian was charged last week after coming into the spotlight in mid-October when an undercover New York City Police Department employee saw that Garza's social media account followed several pro-ISIS accounts, with the accused allegedly commenting on a pro-ISIS post as well, the DOJ said. ISIS is designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the U.S. When he engaged in conversation with the undercover agent who he believed in that conversation to be an ISIS associate, Garza described himself as a 21-year-old Mexican-American from Texas supporting ISIS ideology, this according to the DOJ. Garza paid the undercover small sums of cryptocurrency in November and December of 2025, believing that he was supporting ISIS causes, including the buying of firearms and other materials, the DOJ said in a statement. In addition, Garza also allegedly shared a video depicting a suicide vehicle bombing. According to the DOJ, Garza eventually began revealing his plans to buy materials to produce explosives. He allegedly agreed to buy ingredients to make a bomb and meet with a second individual, an undercover agent from the FBI, on December 22nd. During the meeting, Garza handed the FBI agent various bomb-making materials, explaining how to prepare them. He allegedly also offered to send the agent an instructional bomb-building video. Garza was arrested shortly afterward, faces a hearing on December 30th. If convicted, Garza faces a maximum prison term of 20 years. If that were the only one, okay, well, that was, good work by police. They sussed that guy out and took him down. But listen, earlier this month, an Afghan national was arrested on suspicion of providing support to ISIS. The individual had entered the U.S. in 2021 under the Biden administration's Open Allies Welcome program. Yes, welcome those terrorists right on in here, which aimed to resettle thousands of African nationals in the United States when Washington withdrew from. We didn't vet those people at all. Late last month, a dual American Albanian national was arrested and charged in New York for allegedly offering support to ISIS and distributing instructions on how to make homemade bombs. He was previously arrested in Albania for a weapons offense. How did he get in? No vetting. No vetting of these folks. So, look, here's what I want to say. I don't want the terrorists to win, but I'm very concerned about what might happen with large crowds. Despite the best efforts of police, somebody who is intent on creating mayhem and havoc and taking action against the citizenry, it's if they're determined, it's hard to stop them. Luckily, we've caught a few of these people, and there've been, like I say, 11 cases since Trump took office where they have cracked down on people who were ISIS sympathizers. What I know is this. There are some 18,000 people on a terrorist watch list in this country. Many of them came across the border during the Biden's, criminal. I think it's literally criminal what they did by leaving the border open and unsecured. People were slipping in. You had a bunch of people who got caught at the border, but there are a lot of people who came into this country that we don't know anything about. They never came in contact with police or law enforcement authorities. I mean, we know that they were coming across the country because we have sensors and things like that, and we saw them coming across, but we just didn't have the resources to get to them. They slipped in, and they just vanished into the fabric of America. 18,000 people in this country, 18,000 on a terrorist watch list. We don't know who these people are. We don't know where many of them are. We don't know what they're up to. But I would say they're probably up to no good. And the old saying, in the national security arena is, the people who are out there to try to stop these kinds of attacks against the homeland have to be lucky every day. But a terrorist only has to be lucky once. And there are lone wolves out there, and I think there are a lot of people, I think there are countries around the world took advantage of this to put people into this country who do not have our best interest at heart. And I'm just a little nervous. And I pray it doesn't happen. And I hope that my instincts on this are absolutely wrong. I really do. I don't want to be that guy, but I can't help it. I just feel like I got to say it. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what might happen. We saw a terrorist attack 1 year ago in New Orleans. A guy, ramming a car against a crowd of people. So, look, I think the Trump people are doing a pretty good job. They've been cracking down on folks, and it is my hope that we will get through this holiday unscathed. But if it happens, there is only one person responsible: Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. He will be fully responsible because it was he who had the policies that let these folks into our country. And there's not going to be anybody else to blame. The Trump administration is doing a great job, and the FBI is on its tippy toes again like it hasn't been in many years. They are refocused on this like a laser beam. Homeland Security doing a great job, I think. I think everything that's going on in this country right now, I feel like there's a lot of people who are not looking out for our best interest, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Also, coming up in 2026, there are a lot of things that are going to change with regard to taxes, and a lot of it is good news for you. Let's stop right here and do a quick check on traffic and weather. Pick this up in just a moment. It is 6:45 on Super Talk 99.7. All right, good news about the traffic. Let's talk about this weather. Right now, 25, headed for a high today of 47. If you're interested to know what the temperature will be at midnight when the note drops, it will be 34 degrees, according to the forecasters. New Year's Day will start out at about 32, and it will rise to about 51 with abundant sunshine. And then rain is scheduled to come in here on Friday. Talking about things that are going on in 2026 that you need to know about, and put this under the category of money news. The Internal Revenue Service announced this week that the standard mileage rate for business driving will increase by 2.5 cents per mile. That's important to a lot of people. Additionally, vehicles used for medical purposes will decrease by a half cent. And said reflects updated cost data and annual inflation adjustments. The standard mileage rate is an IRS set figure, which is expressed in cents per mile for business purposes. And a lot of people have to track their mileage. That's one of the things that's good. So let's see what else. Overall, the standard mileage rates for use of a car or pickup or will be 72.5 cents per mile driven for business usage. Okay. We're going to see some big tax cuts. If you're in the gig economy, if you get paid tips, part of your income is from tips, no taxes on tips. Starting in 2026, actually it's already in effect, which means that you're probably going to get a pretty good refund this year. The Social Security income will not be taxed, and I think that is great news for a lot of people. Thank you, big, bad, beautiful Bill. The one thing that we've been hearing a lot about is what's going to happen with housing issues in the coming year. Democrats have found a wedge issue. There's just no doubt about it with this issue of affordability. And though I think the economy is very sound and headed in the right direction, there are things that are really hurting some people. And one of them is the high cost of housing. Why is that? Because Biden let in millions of people and they had to find some place to live. So those folks, scooped up a certain amount of the housing in this country, leaving it difficult for the real Americans to afford a place to live. Cost of housing has gone up because there is a demand that outstrips the supply. And, it's not likely to get better anytime soon. So the Trump administration has decided that they're going to focus like a laser beam. One of the things I heard is in Mar-a-Lago, they're going to, all the big players in that arena are going to be down at Mar-a-Lago for a meeting with the president, where they're going to suggest ideas that could reduce the cost of housing. And that would be a real benefit to some people. What are the ideas? Here's one that's being tossed around from the nationalpulse.com. The Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Scott Turner said that President Donald Trump's 50-year mortgage plan remains under consideration. 50-year mortgage and other ideas have been circulated to the public are being discussed, according to Scott Turner. Trump administration continues to analyze other proposals that would clear the way for 50-year mortgages to become available to home buyers. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I think it's very early. I think more research is needed on the concept of a 50-year mortgage and other ideas that have been put forth. So that's something that could happen. But there's also been talking about a portable mortgage. A lot of people won't sell their homes because they got a 3% mortgage, and they don't want to give up that 3% mortgage. If you had a portable mortgage, you could carry that 3% rate with you to the next home, and that would get a lot of people out of their starter homes into bigger homes, opening up the starter homes for people who want to buy their first home. So a lot of things are going to happen in the coming year, and one of the things that is on the table, apparently, is the concept, at least, of a 50-year mortgage. No final decisions, but a lot of discussion about it, and a promise from the Trump administration that they're going to focus on housing like a laser beam in 2026. And I think they have to, because that is one thing that the Democrats are getting some ground on, the high cost of housing. Are there going to be any rate cuts in the coming year? Maybe not. A written record of the Fed's December meeting released after the customary 3-week delay showed that most members of the Fed's policy committee thought that rates could eventually fall further if inflation declines, but no guarantees. Apparently, the minutes underscored deepening divisions within the Fed, especially in the most recent vote, which drew 3 dissents. They cut rates, but the 3 members of the Fed board were against it. 2 from officials against any cut, and 1 from a Trump ally who favored a larger cut. Looking ahead, some officials suggested it would be appropriate to keep the target range unchanged for some time. So, the Fed is split, and I'm not sure we're going to see interest rates go down. Now, there's going to be a change in the Fed director, the chairman of the Fed, but I think that will happen in 2026 pretty early in the going. But I don't know that they've got the votes on the Fed board to actually change these rate cuts and continue. I think we are due. I mean, look, everything that I see with the economy is remarkably sound. Growth is there. Wages are up. We're going to get tax cuts. People are going to have money in their pocket, have jingle in their pocket going jingling-a-ling, and you're going to be spending money in 2026, and that's a good thing for the economy. I think we're poised for an explosive growth, but those negative Nellies, some of them appointees from past administrations on the Fed, are not so sure. So I wouldn't bet on lower interest rates in the first quarter. Maybe in the second quarter or the third quarter that could happen, but let's wait and see. But it's not looking real good. The Fed not on board with some of this stuff. And I got to tell you, a lot of economists are being surprised by the Trump economy and how resilient it is. Shouldn't be surprised. Because I can tell you right now, with the American economy and the system we have in play, all Trump had to do was get out of the way and let the economy do what the economy does in America. It will rebound, and it seems to be rebounding much more robustly than many people thought. Also, look for big decisions on tariffs next year. If the Supreme Court takes away Trump's tariff ability, well, then we're going to have to look at things anew one more time and see where that puts us. But right now, I think we're headed definitely in the right direction. 2026 economically, going to be a very good year. I think by the time you get to middle of the year, well in advance of the midterm elections, I think this economy is really going to be humming. 53 past the hour now.
As we head toward the top of the hour, we'll have the following stories. Security at Times Square is indeed a priority this evening, and you can fully understand why. Also, Tennessee's flu cases skyrocketing. We'll also have this morning's money news. That's coming up at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
58 minutes past the hour at 6 o'clock, headed to the news with Jay Harper in just a few moments. Jay's in for Joan, and Joan's going to be in a little bit later in the day for Chad Benson from 12 to 3. And, I think she'll do a great job. You might want to tune in a little bit later and support Joan. If you love this program, you love you some Joan Jones. She's the best. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to do a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about the latest in the Somali fraud investigations. There is a lot of news to unpack with regard to that. J.D. Vance is looking really good for 2028. An assessment of where he stands. It's far and above everyone else, but we'll give you all the details about that coming up. We'll have some Epstein news and the latest on our concerns about Iran. It's all coming up in the next hour of Nashville's Morning News. I'm Brian Wilson, in for Dan Mandis. Time for the news with Jay Harper.
It is 7 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A traffic report and a weather forecast are just moments away. Security ramped up in the Big Apple as well as across the nation for New Year's Eve celebrations. ABC's Rena Roy has details from New York City.
As millions of Americans prepare to celebrate this New Year's Eve, law enforcement across the country is on high alert. Security will be especially tight at the iconic ball drop in New York City's Times Square. The nation's largest police force says thousands of its officers will be in the air, on the water, and in the subway system. While officials say there's no specific or credible threat, this year we'll see secondary screenings and additional officers.
Back here in Tennessee, the flu season is hitting harder here in the volunteer state. Tennessee has moved to moderate activity as cases surge and influenza A dominates. Dr. Stephanie Widmer tells ABC News about what can be done if you get sick and what to look out for if you need more care.
There are antiviral options, and that is something to discuss with your doctor because there are a couple different formulations that have different indications. So if you're experiencing flu symptoms, it's important to touch base with your doctor to see if one of these antiviral medications may be indicated for you. And then, of course, if you're experiencing any severe symptoms like chest pain, shortness of breath, too weak to walk, if you're vomiting and can't hold down food, or you're just overall too sick to really take care of yourself, then it's important to seek medical care immediately.
Some doctors are stressing the importance of vaccines as well as good hygiene. And for goodness sake, stay home if you're not feeling well. Let's turn now to the market numbers report. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They can be found online at beaconcm.com. We have this morning's report from Jim Ryan.
Stocks are stumbling into the final day of the year, having posted 3 consecutive daily losses. The Dow on Tuesday gave up 95 points to close at 48,367. The S&P slipped 0.14%. The Nasdaq Composite surrendered 0.25%. When the Fed met this month and decided to cut interest rates, several board governors were on the fence right up to the end. Minutes of the Fed's meeting show several wanted to leave interest rates alone to wait for more economic data. Millions of SNAP recipients are about to face new limitations on what they can buy, including bans on soda, energy drinks, and candy. The Department of Agriculture says 18 states will implement new food stamp restrictions starting in January. There's been another European heist. Thieves drilled their way into the vault of a German retail bank last weekend and stole nearly $12 million worth of money and valuables from customers' safe deposit boxes.
Let's take a look at the stock futures this morning. The Dow down 32, the S&P's down 8 1/4, and the Nasdaq, it's down 51. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. We are still looking mighty smooth this morning on area roadways. No accidents, no breakdowns, and no delays of any impact. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 7:06 on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis. Jay Harper in for Joan Jones. Sam is in for Sam. Sam is pushing the blinky buttons especially effectively today. Good work, Sam.
Thank you, sir.
We got a lot of stuff to cover here on this New Year's Eve day, the 31st day of December, the last day of 2025. And it seems to me, I go through, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 websites preparing for this show every time I fill in. And it seems that the overwhelming story is what's going on in Minnesota with Somali fraud. Nothing gets the ire up of the American voter more than finding out that their hard-earned taxpayer dollars that they sweat and bled for are being wasted through fraud, corruption, and abuse. And it seems that Minnesota is a hotbed for that kind of activity. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of it. Here is Senator Eric Schmidt, who is a Republican senator. Yeah, they have Republicans in Minnesota, just not many of them. Republican Senator Eric Schmidt on some of the Somali fraud that has been uncovered thus far and what might happen in the days ahead.
There's two issues. The first is we're seeing, I think, just sadly, the tip of the iceberg of this fraud from these Somali strongholds in the United States. It's in Minnesota. You've talked about Maine. You've talked about Ohio. This is a scam that reaches far and wide. And I'm kind of tired of the talk. This is a broader legal immigration problem. We talk a lot about illegal immigration, but this is a legal immigration problem. So from my perspective, under 18 U.S.C. 1343, the wire fraud statute, there ought to be prosecutions immediately. Every visa that can be revoked should be revoked. Every deportation that should happen right away. And in some cases where necessary, denaturalization should happen. A strong signal should be sent to immigrant communities that if you're going to come here and fleece the American taxpayer, we're actually going to prioritize taxpayers over this toxic empathy that's dominated the Democrat Party. Secondly, you talked about some of the COVID fraud abuse. The Biden administration, Jason, pushed so much money out the door for causes and issues that were never related to COVID. I think you're going to see another wave of this fraud, and you have to have state AGs who are serious about it, and hopefully President Trump's U.S. attorneys, when those state AGs don't step up, do it as well. But I think Congress certainly plays a role, but I'm sort of done with the talking. This is about prosecutions now. This is about putting people in jail that have taken billions of dollars, billions of dollars. This is part of an immigration system that is tilted against the American people. If you're, a working class American that sees this, you're right to be frustrated with your government, and I think this is an opportunity to regain the trust of the American people and go after this fraud.
I mean, there is no better issue for Republicans than going after waste, fraud, and abuse in government. We started off on a good note with the Doge stuff. But, I mean, apparently, it is so widespread. The Biden administration, it seems, the way I look at it, it was pumping out billions and billions and billions of dollars to people in an attempt to buy votes for the last election. They knew they were in trouble. They knew that the economy was in the toilet by their own cause and their own making, quite frankly. And they were trying to do anything in a desperate move to save and to improve their chances in the last election. They were just giving money over hand over fist, and they weren't doing their due diligence. Thank goodness the Trump administration has really started to crack down on this. More on this from a Minnesota State Representative, Kristen Robbins. She's also a Republican in Minnesota who is running for the office of governor right now.
I called for the governor to resign several weeks ago. I just think his dereliction of duty is unconscionable. These whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm for years. We've had hearings for almost a year now, holding his agencies accountable. He's not fired anyone. He's not taken steps to stop the fraud on the front end, and he continues to make excuses. So he is responsible. He has turned a blind eye for 7 years, and we need to clean house in the executive branch. So we have to get a handle on this. These are taxpayer dollars that have been stolen from our taxpayers and that have should be helping vulnerable citizens, not fake students, not fake recipients, and getting sent overseas.
All right. So, it sounds like the Republicans are jumping on this as they should. And trying to see if there's any way, is there any way to claw some of this money back? That's what I want to know. If billions of dollars have been wasted, is there any way to get it back? There have been some prosecutions in the state of Minnesota, not many, but in many cases it seems like there just wasn't much interest in going after these people that were stealing taxpayer money. Why? Because the Somali vote is a very powerful block of votes in the state of Minnesota, and Democrats didn't want to lose them, and they were bribing them to stay on board with their policies and to vote for them. Here is KARE-TV investigative reporter Lou Ragusi, talking about, some of the things that he has covered over the years. Like I say, there have been some coverage, just not as much attention has been paid as has been paid in the last few days.
The state of Minnesota has investigated daycare fraud in the past with very mixed results.
Yeah.
For 4 years, I tracked the investigation into 4 different daycares. DHS, the Department of Human Services, referred the first case to the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, because they documented overbilling. The BCA says their surveillance found Sunshine Child Care Center and 2 others they started investigating billed taxpayers for twice as many kids as they served through the Child Care Assistance Program.
That's interesting because, we've seen these daycare centers that didn't have any kids. In some cases, the scam was, we'll bring in, 20 kids, but we'll tell the government that we're caring for 40. Nobody's going to go and check, do a head count, or they should, but they don't. But they were abusing the system by claiming that they had more students in their care, more kids in their care than they actually did.
But charges were never filed in these cases.
Yeah, no charges brought in those cases.
Look at this. The lead agent from the BCA partially blamed the DHS, the department that referred the case, saying DHS wouldn't share needed documentation because they didn't want to act as an arm of the BCA.
That's not this administration's Department of Homeland Security. It was the previous.
Now, 2 of these daycare owners are suing the state, claiming they were discriminated against for being Somali. Here's their attorney.
There's no indication that any other child care centers owned by any other group was targeted even for investigation.
Did your clients fudge the numbers and get reimbursements for more kids than they were actually caring for?
No. And if they had, they'd be really foolish to be doing this, right?
The state filed a motion to dismiss that lawsuit in federal court. The judge is still deciding.
Well, so, look, I think maybe the judges are being, pressured now to look at these things perhaps more critically than they did in the past. And apparently I've read that there were a couple of judges that were very, very sympathetic to the Somali community and were unwilling to consider these cases. So, there's some corruption there as well. Looking at some of the things that are happening here, the Trump administration has taken action in a big way in Minnesota. I'll tell you about that right after we stop for traffic and weather at 7:15 on Super Talk 99.7. Well, the sun is up, and the temperatures are still pretty cold, and the mid to upper 20s right now, depending on where you are. High today of 47. If you're curious, we should have a temperature of around 34 degrees at midnight when the note drops here in Music City. The Trump administration is really going to go after this thing in a big way. There is nothing but positives for an administration that goes after corruption, fraud, and abuse. This is the thing. It just ticks off the American voter. And given the fact that Democrats have found sort of a wedge issue on some of this affordability stuff, I think that they need to be shown that, that the Democrats are corrupt, and they are allowing billions and billions and billions of dollars to be wasted through fraud, waste, and abuse. And I don't think, that Minnesota is the only place. Trust me, they're a big play. Ohio, other places are going to be looked at very closely. But this action taken immediately by the Trump administration, and I think it is a good idea, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says it has frozen all child care payments in the state of Minnesota as the FBI and Department of Homeland Security investigate allegations of fraud, including at child care centers, in the latest show of federal force in the state, home to the largest Somali population in the country. Deputy Secretary of HHS Jim O'Neill announced the funding freeze on X yesterday after ICE launched operations in Minneapolis, St. Paul, to specifically target undocumented Somali immigrants, precipitated by revelations about widespread fraud against the state, as well as President Donald Trump's comments that he doesn't want Somalis in the country. The stepped-up effort, according to CNN, also comes days after YouTube content director Nick Shirley has created anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim videos. I don't know that they're anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim. This is CNN slant. But they are. Funds will be released now only when states prove that they are being spent legitimately. States are on notice. If you can't verify how that money is being spent, there ain't going to be no more money. Minnesota receives $185 billion in federal child care funding for 19,000 children. There are no specified alternate plans for families who will be affected by the freeze. So there is that. It's the CNN story. They slip in these little shots. Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced that 85 people of Somali descent are among those charged in a continuing fraud probe in Minnesota. She noted that the Department of Justice has been examining the Democrat-run state for months, with more prosecutions anticipated. Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Kash Patel confirmed an active investigation, pointing out the Bureau had already boosted staffing and resources in Minnesota before the issue gained widespread attention on social media. Patel stressed the FBI focus on breaking up major fraud operations that target federal programs. And you've seen the video perhaps on Fox News or elsewhere, maybe on your social media feeds. DHS and ICE have flooded the zone, as it were, in Minnesota, going door to door to crack down on suspected Minneapolis scammers. Department of Homeland Security investigators have begun going door to door in Minneapolis, cracking down on suspected scammers tied to an explosive child care welfare scheme. The department confirmed in new videos. Secretary Kristi Noem posted one such video on X indicating that the federal agents, including those from DHS and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, are hitting the streets to confront operators of so-called ghost daycares, empty facilities that have allegedly siphoned off massive sums through fraudulent claims. I think the thing that's going to be more difficult for them to sort of get to the base of are these cases where the daycare providers are taking care of some children, but telling the government they're taking care of a lot more children than are actually showing up. I think that's going to be hard to find. And it will give them some cover. Well, we have kids here. Yeah, but how many have you told the government you have? How many did you really have? We ought not be giving billions and billions and billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars that that you worked hard for, that you gave to the government, and have it squandered because we're not doing a head count. There is no accountability. How can we give out money without knowing whether the money is being spent properly? Well, we do it all the time, and apparently we did it big time during the Biden administration. So there you have that. And it's not, as we said, you may have heard Senator Eric Schmidt say there are other states that may be looked at. Ohio may be the next hotbed for mayhem. Said they are looking at other places. Mahek Cook has talked about the situation in Ohio on the home health racket. Audit America, audit Ohio now. I'm pushing that in every state. The state will, as long as doctors have approved it, continue to pay you. It could be for 10 hours, 12 hours, or 24. Listen to this. You could sit at home. This is another kind of fraud. You could be sitting at home caring for an elderly parent who really doesn't need it and make unbelievable, scamming the system for $75,000 to $90,000 a year. You got two parents, that becomes $180,000. Add your in-laws in, it's $250,000. You can scam the system. Again, no accountability. Nobody's going on the door and looking and knocking on the door and say, is this money being spent properly? Let's look at every individual. No auditing. You've got to audit this stuff. You've absolutely got to audit this stuff. Listen, in a moment, we often hear from the left that illegal aliens commit fewer crimes than the average Americans writ large. Apparently not true. And I'll give you some data on that after we go to the commercial break at 7:22 on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for the vacationing Dan Mandis.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll get to these stories. Venezuelan drugs continue to be targeted by the U.S. and the latest on the search for a missing young woman in South Texas. We'll have those stories coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
29 minutes past the hour, just ahead of the news with Jay Harper filling in for Joan Jones. Coming up in the next half hour, J.D. Vance is far and away the leading contender for 2028 right now. We'll give you some statistics on that, and it looks like the nomination is going to be his as it stands today if he wants it, and I think he wants it. We'll get into the details of that, a little bit of Epstein news, and the situation with Iran. They're having some real problems in Iran. We'll get into all of that and what might happen in that war-torn area of the world. It's all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7 at 7:30. Time for the news with Jay Harper.
It is 7:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get to that weather forecast for the new year, as well as a traffic report. The first known U.S. attack on Venezuelan soil has escalated tensions in the Caribbean. The attack was reportedly a drone strike carried out by the CIA, which has been operating covertly in Venezuela. President Trump saying the strike destroyed a dock where drugs were allegedly being loaded onto ships. Here's ABC News contributor and former State Department official Steve Ganyard.
This is certainly an unprecedented use of power against Venezuela, but it's not an unprecedented use of presidential power. And the president has lined up the legal authorities that he needs to use the CIA as a counterterrorism weapon.
The search for a missing young woman in South Texas appears to have reached a tragic end. ABC's Jim Ryan says a body has been discovered near Camila Mendoza Olmos's home.
Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar is being careful not to get ahead of the forensics experts who will determine the identity and cause of death of the person whose remains were found Tuesday.
I can tell you that we found a firearm very near the body, and in this particular case, we were actually looking for a firearm as well that had come up missing.
After a 6-day search involving dozens of people, the body was discovered only a few hundred yards from Camila Mendoza Olmos' home.
A federal judge here in Nashville is ordering the Department of Justice to hand over emails in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. Here's Channel 4's Tracy Cornett.
He was the man mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Abrego Garcia, brought back to Tennessee, faced human smuggling charges, but a newly unsealed order reveals high-level Department of Justice officials pushed for his indictment only after he was deported and then ordered to return. Abrego Garcia's lawyers asked for his case to be dismissed on the grounds that he's facing a vindictive prosecution. Acting U.S. Attorney Rob McGuire argues he alone made the decision to prosecute Abrego Garcia.
That is the latest news, traffic and weather. There next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. At 7:35 here this morning, our traffic continues to look just beautiful here this morning. No accidents, no breakdowns, no delays of any impact. That's all coming up. Well, we've got your traffic coming up every 10 minutes on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Let's call it 37 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on this New Year's Eve. Tonight the note drops. Temperatures be around 34 degrees. So if you're going downtown, there's a whole list of things. We'll get into it a little bit later. A whole list of things that you need to know about where to go and what you can bring with you. But it's going to be about 34 degrees. So you definitely, one thing you need to bring with you is a good coat, a scarf, some gloves. Standing out, 34, you say, that's not so bad. I'm tough. I can take it. When you're standing for a long time in one area, the cold can really creep in, even if you're wearing a good heavy coat. I hate to be that person, but, I didn't take you to raise, but, just good advice. Be sure you bundle up. You'll be glad that you did. I want to start this hour by talking about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is poised to get the nomination the way it stands right now. Harry Enton, say what you will about CNN. I love this guy over there, Harry Enton. In fact, I noticed that Fox plays Harry Enton more than CNN does, because he looks at statistics and crunches the numbers and comes up with very interesting but I think very fair assessments of where things stand. And he says, when you look at Republicans in 2028, there is one candidate who stands head and shoulders above everybody else in the polling data that is admittedly very early, and that's J.D. Vance. Here is Harry Enton.
They're already running, and J.D. Vance is running well ahead of the field. I mean, take a look here. Top chances to be the 2028 GOP president nominee, the prediction market odds. Look at this, J.D. Vance, 48% chance. Nobody else is even close. Marco Rubio is way back at 12%, and no one else is even above a 5% chance of being the 2028 GOP nominee. J.D. Vance is like Mario Andretti, and Marco Rubio and the rest of the field are like going around in go-karts at this point. I mean, that's really what we're looking at. J.D. Vance is the clear, heavy favorite at this time. We'll note, of course, he's not at 50% plus yet, but when nobody else is even close, that makes you a clear, heavy favorite. And there's a reason why. Just take a look at New Hampshire, right? The first in the nation primary. I mean, take a look here. J.D. Vance at 51%. The next closest is Nikki Haley, who's at 9%.
Nikki Haley is not going to, I don't think she's going to get in this time. I mean, her numbers are looking pretty abysmal. It's important to note that if you're doing well in New Hampshire as the vice president, there's a very good chance you're going to become the party nominee. You're sort of on it's just a matter of going through the process at that point.
Who's at 9? I mean, what is that? That's 42 points ahead of the pack. Tulsi Gabbard is at 8. In the first in the nation primary, J.D. Vance, running 42 points ahead. There's a reason why he's such a heavy favorite in the prediction market so far, because if you win the GOP primary in New Hampshire, chances are you're going to be the Republican nominee for president. So I saw this 51%, and all of a sudden, there was a buzz going around my head. I said, boy, this seems really weird. I can't recall anyone being this far ahead at this early stage in New Hampshire. I look back, hitting 50% plus in the early New Hampshire polls for a non-sitting president. J.D. Vance is the only one The only one, you can go all the way back in the polling archives, all the way back to 1980, which is the earliest I could look at. J.D. Vance is the only one ever to getting a majority of the New Hampshire vote according to the early primary polls. At this point, J.D. Vance is pulling off something historic at this time, and that is the key reason why, at this point, he is the far and away favorite for the Republican nomination. He's just way out ahead of the pack. Take a look at the last 5 sitting VPs who ran for the presidency. All were their party's nominees: Kamala Harris, Al Gore, George H.W. Bush, Hubert Horatio Humphrey, therefore HHH, and Richard Nixon back in 1960. So, yeah, you put it all together, J.D. Vance, a heavy favorite. He's had a very good 2025. We'll see if he has a very good 2026.
Well, a couple of cautionary notes here. It is very early, and, but it's never too early to look. We can't help ourselves. When you love politics, we got to look. Those numbers are pretty remarkable. Republicans are on board with a J.D. Vance candidacy in 2028. I think, really, when you think about it, I think Republicans have a very strong bench. There are some great Republicans out there. I've always been a big fan of Marco Rubio. I think he's wicked smart. I think he's really a smart guy. He is proving himself well as Secretary of State and also National Security Advisor to the president. I mean, you hardly ever see the president without Marco Rubio by his side. J.D. Vance is there. J.D. Vance has the ability, because he's vice president. It's a job with very little responsibility. And so what if you're smart and you want to run for president and you're the vice president, you spend a lot of the time that you're in office out there, beating the bushes, raising money, talking to people, securing your position within the party. And I think he's done that very well. Americans, I don't know how Americans will vote, but I can tell you Republicans are on board with J.D. Vance. I personally think a Vance-Rubio ticket would be remarkably strong. Rubio says he won't run for president if J.D. Vance gets in the race. Well, that's understandable, looking at the numbers. But if you add Rubio, who has a lot of people really like Marco Rubio, as vice president to J.D. Vance as president, I think that's a very powerful ticket. And I think, to carry on the Trump legacy. Now, I just want to say I've never been a believer that Trump wanted to run for a third term. I don't think you can completely, I'd say it's probably 90% chance he won't, but I want to leave open a 10% chance, because some constitutional scholars have said it's unclear whether he can run for a third term or not. I don't know. To me, it's very clear you can't, but at least some constitutional scholars can see an argument. Whether or not Trump has it in him, or whether or not the American people want a third Trump term, I don't know. But I like me some J.D. Vance, and I like me some Marco Rubio. And if Marco doesn't want the job, there's 10 other people in that administration who could be great running mates for J.D. Vance. Pretty impressive stuff. I saw an editorial written by Liz Peek over at foxnews.com, which I think does a really good job of sort of looking at where we are in America today. We're going to be in January 20th, in about 21 days or so. We will reach the 1-year mark of the Trump presidency. And a lot of things have happened. And, when they happen, we make note of them, and then we move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It's only at the end of the year where you stop and take stock of what has occurred during this remarkable first year of Trump's second term in office. And I'll get to that right after we stop for traffic and weather at 7:45 on Super Talk 99.7. All right, looking for a high today of around 51, around 34 degrees at midnight tonight. Thursday, 32 degrees for a start, a high of 51, and abundant sunshine. So not a bad day on Thursday, and then rain moving in on Friday. Liz Peek, 5 unforgettable lessons we've all learned in 2025 and some that the Democrats still have not learned. Here are the issues. Climate alarmism is dead. The Trump administration knew almost immediately they needed to fix the energy policies of the Biden administration. Turns out we need oil and gas. Look at the pumps right now. Good news. Big government spending. A staple of the Democrat Party playbook leads directly to big fraud. We are just now beginning to scratch the surface on that. And DEI programs, we've determined that they don't work, and they've been eliminated from the by the Trump administration in government. DEI is dead, and may it rest in peace. We've also learned in 2025 that cops on the street mean safer streets. I'm telling you, you would think that that's just good common sense. You have a robust police presence, and you're going to see crime go down. And that has proven to be true. And the Trump administration has proved that in Washington, D.C. and other places around the country. The other thing that we have learned is that gender-affirming care is dangerous and wrong. Now let's go through these one by one. Those are just the headlines. Climate. Liz Peek writes, perhaps the most consequential change of 2025 was the long overdue realization that climate alarmism is possibly more dangerous than climate change. When even billionaire Bill Gates, longtime climate crusader, hangs up his spikes, something profound has shifted. Gates recently wrote a memo admitting that climate change will not lead to humanity's demise. A dose of realism that one of the world's richest human beings comes only a year after he penned a book, How to Avoid Climate Disaster. Look at how blue state officials are running pell-mell away from climate mandates that have driven electricity costs higher and infuriated voters. Exhibit 1, New York Democrat Kathy Hochul, who recently lifted the damaging de facto ban on natural gas pipeline construction imposed by her predecessor, Governor Cuomo. After clinging to Cuomo's disastrous climate agenda for years and watching New York City's electricity rate soar 40% above the nation's average, Hochul approved key permits for the Williams Northeast Supply Enhancement natural gas pipeline in November. It infuriated climate warriors, and Hochul said energy needs and grid reliability dictated the change. For a woman who wanted to outlaw gas stoves, that is an about-face. I mean, that is Trump. Trump has shown them. Strong, we still need oil, we still need gas, and we can move towards some other alternative sources of energy. I personally think the answer is nuclear, but, we still have some people who have concerns about that, but I think it's the way to go. Trump is on board with that as well. Number 2, big government. Under Joe Biden, Democrats spent trillions of dollars unnecessarily boosting our deficits relative to the economy to levers never seen before during major wars. The gusher of cash not only fed decades of high inflation, that 9.1%, remember? It also opened the door to mammoth fraud with hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars gone missing. They were shoveling money out the back door to anybody on the Democrat side of the equation who would put their hand out, and they weren't following up to find out how that money was spent. And we're seeing that now in Somalia, and believe me, in the coming months, we're going to find out that we are just beginning to scratch the surface on how much fraud and abuse there was under the Biden administration. Number 3, DEI is dead. Early on, President Donald Trump reversed what he called illegal and immoral DEI programs that Biden had required to be implemented in every corner of the federal government. Biden's executive order advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government demanded nearly every federal agency, even air traffic controllers in the military, submit equity action plans, which led to immense public waste and shameful discrimination. Inspired by the president's pushback against the virtue signaling programs, corporations aware that such efforts divide their employees and stoke resentment quietly let DEI fall by the wayside. Many many companies have walked away from DEI training. It's amazing how that has fallen away as companies learn that it causes more harm than it does good. Number 4, having cops on the beat helps. You'd think it's obvious that putting more cops on the beat brings down crime, but leftists in the U.S. insist on ideology rather than common sense or evidence that law enforcement is the problem and not the cure. Oh, we need community policing. We hear that in Nashville. Oh, we need more community policing. No, you need cops on the street. By the way, Nashville, where are the damn license plate readers? Where are they? In places like Mount Juliet, in places like Lebanon, and in other places around our area, we're using license plate readers to combat crime incredibly effective. It is an incredibly effective police tool. And some people say, well, it's intrusive. There's no expectation of privacy on a public street. That's the law. The Supreme Court has said so. We need to get serious about that in Nashville, but what we have learned is when you put police officers on the street and you support them to go out and fight crime or evil in their communities, you're going to find that crime, surprise, 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 goes down. Just 5 of the things that we have learned over the past year under the tutelage of President Donald Trump's administration. 52 minutes now past the hour of 7 o'clock.
Coming up at the top of the hour, the Trump administration halting child care payments to Minnesota. We'll also have the latest on what security is being increased in cities all across the country in light of the New Year's Eve celebrations. Those stories and more coming up at the top of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 57 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I talked just a moment ago about the great things that have occurred in 2025 because of the Donald Trump administration, and it's been a wholesale change. And I think the government is back on its tippy toes. I think law enforcement back on its tippy toes. A lot of good things going on there. The economy is roaring back. Gasoline prices are low. We're going to work on housing in 2026. I mean, there's a lot. There are very positive things that have occurred. Sometimes when you stop and take stock of it, it's amazing how much has occurred in the last year. I want to put one cautionary note about what might happen in the midterm elections if we don't get something straightened out pretty quick. There's a very smart man. I've known him for a lot of years, Frank Luntz, a pollster out of D.C., and really to call him a pollster, I don't know if that's an accurate term. Frank's real gift is how to take complicated ideas in government and explain them to people in ways that they can understand. He's all about language and using the right language to express these ideas. And everybody turns to him and says, how do we explain this to the American people? What resonates with the American people? He does do some polling. He does a lot of focus groups and that kind of stuff. And he's a very smart guy. Here's what he said. Frank Luntz said Tuesday that Republicans would face an uphill battle with voters if the government shuts down in January over health care policy. The shutdown that we experienced, the longest ever in American history, started off hurting Democrats more than Republicans, ended up hurting President Trump more than anybody else, Luntz said. If the government does shut down because they still can't find a solution to this, it's going to be very painful for the Republican Party because, as you note, every survey, every poll out there shows that Republicans will be hurt more by this than Democrats. He's talking on CNN. He noted a poll that showed that 84% of enrollees said that they want Congress to extend health care subsidies. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I'm not that smart. But I know they need to find one. And we need to be seen as doing something positive about health care. And we need to avoid, if we can, on any level, another government shutdown. It will not bode well for Republicans in a midterm election year. You know, the problem here is that the Democrats are going to be very, very antagonistic in trying to find any solution. They're not going to be working hand in hand with Republicans. They just can't. So we got to find a solution. We have to push it through with our own votes while we still have Congress control of the House and Senate. Because if you look at historical background, you can't guarantee that we're going to be in control of the House and Senate after the midterm elections. I hope we can turn that around, but a shutdown would not be a good thing. At 8 o'clock, time for the news with Jay Harper.
It is 1 minute past 8 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A weather forecast, a traffic report are both on the way. The Trump administration says it will stop making child care payments to the state of Minnesota, citing allegations of widespread fraud. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has the very latest.
The move comes as a viral video from a conservative influencer shines a national spotlight on a story that's been reported for years by Minnesota's local news outlets. The alleged fraud involves the government being billed for health and child care that providers aren't actually providing. Republicans say it's been happening on Democratic Governor Tim Walz's watch. Since 2022, federal prosecutors have charged dozens with fraud. Most of the defendants are of Somali descent.
A year after the January 1st terror attack on Bourbon Street, security is top of mind in New Orleans this New Year's Eve. Here's ABC's Jim Ryan.
Among the street performers and tourists, military Humvees and uniformed National Guard members are stationed throughout New Orleans' French Quarter. Some visitors are snapping selfies with the soldiers.
Feel much safer, and I thank Donald Trump for sending them here.
But Attorney Morris Bart wants to see Bourbon Street become pedestrians only year-round.
You close it off by putting in permanent heavy-duty bollards.
Bart represents some of the victims of the January 1st ramming attack that killed 14 people on Bourbon Street.
Back here in Tennessee, starting tomorrow, January 1st, Tennessee will expand the ways in which law enforcement can build a case against someone for driving under the influence during a traffic stop. News 2's Audrey Mayer has more.
Starting next year, Tennessee is expanding the ways in which law enforcement can build a case against someone for DUI during a traffic stop, starting with a swab of your saliva. And those results can be used in court. The law also increases the suspension period for someone suspected of misdemeanor DUI when they refuse a roadside test from 1 year to a year and a half. The law also clarifies that refusing a test is still a violation, even if a blood sample is obtained later.
We now turn to the market numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They can be tracked down online at beaconcm.com. Let's take a look at the stock futures. Everything on the positive side now. The Dow up 14, the S&P is up 6, and the NASDAQ up 34.25. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. In the immediate Nashville metro, things still moving along smoothly. No accidents or breakdowns and no delays of any significance. However, in Murfreesboro, we have picked up a crash. It's blocking the left shoulder and also part of the median. This crash, 24 eastbound, just past exit 78. That's Old Fort Parkway. But aside from that, things are looking good. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 7 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2025, the last year of 2025. And I am Brian Wilson filling in for Dan Manis, who will return next year. Next Monday, actually. So we'll be looking forward to having him back in the chair. Thank you for being here on this, for what is a lot of people a holiday. I mean, the traffic, as you have heard, there's not much going on out there. People are staying home. A lot of people watching on what we call Super Talk TV. So you'll be pleased to have you look here at my humble studio in bucolic Watertown, Tennessee, with a sleeping dog on the couch. We are going to bring you news and information you can use for the next hour. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by Chris Hand, who will carry on at 9 o'clock. Okay, quickly, a couple of things that I've been trying to work into the show all morning long, and quite frankly, I've just been overwhelmed by other stuff. But this is important stuff. We are putting a lot of pressure on Iran. Our government is doing a lot of things. There are all kinds of blockades and trade barriers that have been laid upon Iran, shutting down trade, shutting down their oil. We're hurting them in a big way. And the idea there is to create unrest so that there might be a regime change. I mean, you're not going to hear anybody say that, but ultimately that's what we want. We want regime change that comes from within. Maybe something's going on. Apparently because of the various blockades and trade barriers that have been set up and shutting down, an attempt to shut down Iran's economy, inflation has run rampant. It's up 40%. And, inside Iran, it's a police state, really, and it's very unusual to see open protest, but it's starting to happen. Listen to this: growing Iran protests put new pressure on an embattled regime. Try that again. Growing Iran protests put new pressure on an embattled regime. Unrest is triggered by a drop in Iran's currency as frustration with a persistent economic crisis rises. Protests over Iran's falling currency grew as they spread across Iran, increasing the pressure on the government already struggling with an economic crisis and a shattered defenses after a war with Israel. Footage posted on social media shows protests Monday at an upmarket mall near Tehran's sprawling bazaar. In one video, demonstrators can be heard chanting Azadi, which is the Farsi word for freedom. Another shows security forces in riot gear confronting the protesters and firing tear gas. By late Monday, demonstrations were spreading across the capital into other parts of the country. Merchants were protesting in several areas in and around the bazaar, and there were demonstrations in West Tehran. On Qasem Island, on the country's Persian Gulf Coast, protests were chanting "Death to the Dictator." At night, as motorists honked in support of other verified footage seems to show. And Hamidan, Western Iran, protests chanted slogans calling for the return of the Pahlavi dynasty, which ruled Iran before it was toppled by the Islamic Revolution in 1979. The size of the protests could not be confirmed, but they broke out at a number of locations in a clear expression of discontent with the government. They were especially notable as the government's been carrying out a widespread crackdown on dissidents, arresting key opponents, and executing the most people this year in nearly 4 decades in an effort to prevent a popular uprising. This, according to the Wall Street Journal. The June war with Israel exposed Iran's inability to defend its population from attack, as well as the failure of its intelligence services to prevent deep penetration by Israeli spies. That revelation led to a surge in discontent with the government already on fire for its strict moral codes and poor economic performance. President Trump has talked about what's going on in Iran. He says that he thinks that in Iran, the government is behaving badly. and maybe trying to reconstitute its destroyed nuclear weapons program.
Iran may be behaving badly. It hasn't been confirmed, but if it's confirmed, look, they know the consequences. Consequences will be very powerful, maybe more powerful than the last time. Yeah. And Iran should have made a deal the last time. I gave them the option. I said, you can make a deal. Do it. I told them, do it. And they didn't believe me. Now they believe me.
Do you have evidence that Iran is behaving badly, and what do you mean by that?
This is just what we hear. But usually, where there's smoke, there's fire. Have you heard the expression?
What do you mean related to the nuclear capability?
Well, no, I'm hearing that they're not nuclear yet, but maybe nuclear too. The sites were obliterated, but they're looking at other sites. That's what I've heard. They're looking. So it'll take a long time. They're not going to go back to where they were, but they have other places they can go. And if they're doing that, they're making a big mistake. Yeah, please. There's no reason for them to do it.
Mr. President, is the United States currently open to engaging in bilateral discussions with Tehran? We're hearing reports from numerous countries that there may be some discussions. Is that something you would support, or something that is happening?
Would.
You
Sure.
would support that?
I would, yes.
Right now. Thank you, sir.
I have been, by the way, before the war, I would support that. I said to him, baby, I said, let's negotiate. And they didn't believe what was going to happen would happen.
Well, it did happen, and it could happen again. As you heard him say Bibi, he was standing right next to Bibi Netanyahu at this time when he made it. And I think behind closed doors, Netanyahu came in with new intelligence that was eye-opening, is the way I'm beginning to read things. Iran is facing pressure from Israel, according to the Wall Street Journal, where the country's leaders are warning they could take military action over Tehran's efforts to rebuild its arsenal of ballistic missiles. President Trump, meeting Monday in Florida with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, indicated he would support such action if necessary. If they continue with the missiles, yes, Trump said when asked if he would support an Israeli strike. Regime change needs to come from within, and it will only happen if the Iranian people say they have had enough with the government that is now running the place. I say watch Iran. It's interesting, and don't be surprised if you see more actions taken against Iran by Israel. I think Israel has got a lot of people inside that country who can carry out, they can carry out operations at will in that country, it would seem. And certainly Israel has proven their ability to keep Iran in check. But don't count out desperate people. Here's another version of the story from redstate.com. The mullahs have ruled in Iran since 1979, and that's a long time. But there are people who remember what it was like in the country before. They remember what it was like to have more freedom then. There have been resistance movements ever since, inside and outside of Iran. They've had moments in the past where things seem to come close, such as the Green Movement in 2009, hundreds of thousands on the street. But Barack Obama was in office in 2009, so their hope of it having any support were dashed. Then in 2016, he secretly flew $400 million back to Iran. Thank you, Barack Obama. They had millions that went to help prop up the terrorist state, and that led to the attack against Israel. No doubt about it. They were funding that attack. So nationwide strikes by merchants have continued across Iran, with shops shuttered in major commercial hubs, including Tehran's Grand Bazaar, as we talked about, and a lot of video showing that the people are in the midst of an uprising. In a moment, I'm finally going to get to the story about Jeffrey Epstein, the latest on that. It's all coming up after we check on weather and traffic. We're a little bit late, 16 minutes past the hour. Look for a high today of 47. Right now it's about 26 degrees, and at midnight tonight when they do the note drop, 34. Bundle up. Here we go. The DOJ, they were supposed to have released all of the Epstein documents. This is maddening, really, I know, for a lot of people. They had a deadline. Congress said, you've got to release this stuff. And they had a deadline, and they waited to the last second, and they started to dribble stuff out across the Christmas holiday. I don't think there's been anything that's been particularly eye-opening here. Certainly nothing that has actually, no smoking gun against Trump. And we didn't think there would be. Everything that I've seen so far, I mean, there's been a couple of documents that look pretty bad. Turned out they were fakes. they were forgeries, but but they were still in the file, and so that was a momentary heartburn. But as we got more details about it, turns out there wasn't much there, and they're still dribbling out. But then, in the midst of this release, came this word from the Southern District of New York, where they were conducting a Jeffrey Epstein investigation that led to him being put in jail before he committed suicide or whatever. The Justice Department is buried now in about 5.2 million pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein that the Southern District of New York said, hey, by the way, you're supposed to be releasing all the documents. We've got about 5 million of them. Left hand, right hand, didn't know. Amazing. Why was that revealed so late in the game? It could take until late January to complete a review. They have to be gone through. The latest figure reported by the New York Times on Tuesday indicates the task before the DOJ is even more daunting than the department signaled it would be last week. It said at the time that there are over 1 million pages. We now know there are over 5 million pages. We toss around the number million a lot. It's lost its magnitude. Most people don't think of $1 million as being a lot of anything, but 1 million is a lot, and 5 million is 5 times a lot. To comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which established a December 19th deadline, the DOJ is seeking to rope in 400 lawyers to help review the outstanding material, according to the outlet. The battalion-sized review team includes prosecutors who work on national security and criminal cases. Honestly, with all that's going on in the world right now, is this the most important thing? I know a lot of people want to know the truth. I think there's there's not much there. I think everybody believes that they will never get it. And quite frankly, as long as they redact and withhold some documents for national security purposes, they claim, I'm not sure we'll ever find an American public that is satisfied that they have seen it all. I really don't. But taking 400 lawyers who are supposed to be doing other things to do this, I'm not sure it's the best use of our government resources, quite frankly. Reasonable people can disagree on that. There's another story in the Wall Street Journal about Epstein that gives us more details about the falling out that Trump had with Epstein way back, 2003. Now President Donald Trump banned Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after a 2003 incident at Epstein's Palm Beach home involving a young spa employee. The Wall Street Journal reported Tuesday, citing former Mar-a-Lago and Epstein employees. The Journal reported that Mar-a-Lago's spa had for years sent employees, typically young women, to Epstein's nearby mansion for massages and other services. Former employees told the newspaper staff, warned one another about Epstein's behavior during those house calls, describing him as sexually suggestive and prone to exposing himself. The practice came to an end in 2003 after a then 18-year-old beautician returned from a house call and told managers that Epstein pressured her to have sex. According to former employees, a manager sent Trump a fax detailing the allegation and urged that Epstein be barred from the club. Trump agreed and ordered Epstein removed. No matter how many times this story is told and retold, the truth remains. President Trump did nothing wrong, and he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep, says White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, speaking to the Wall Street Journal. The White House accused the Journal of writing up fallacies and innuendo in order to smear the President Trump. Epstein was not a dues-paying member at Mar-a-Lago, the Journal noted, but Trump had previously instructed staff to treat him as one. Epstein maintained an account at the spa where Ghislaine Maxwell, his longtime associate, booked appointments and charged services in his name. The beautician's allegation was reportedly internal to Mar-a-Lago's Human Resources Department, was not referred to the Palm Beach police at the time, according to the Journal. That's what we know about that. Epstein's story still alive as we enter 2026. It's now 23 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Well, another alert for another cryptocurrency scam. We'll fill you in on that. Also, we'll have this morning's money news. That's all coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up in just a few minutes after the news with Jay Harper, everybody crashes the board for the crisscross. Chris Hand is on board. We'll hear from Sam and maybe even Jay Harper, where if he can walk away from his news for a little bit, will join us for some things to talk about, this, that, and the other. It's all straight ahead. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 8:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you a forecast and a traffic report again here in just a bit. The FBI has renewed its warning about scams involving automated teller machines that deal in cryptocurrency. ABC's Jim Ryan says Bitcoin has become the preferred currency of rip-off artists all over the globe.
It's happened thousands of times.
Hey, ma'am.
The victims are often older people.
Please, I have to bank on the phone, and I'm in danger.
85-year-old Fran Bates had been convinced by scammers to withdraw $40,000 from her bank and feed it into a Bitcoin ATM near her home. Luckily, police were alerted.
Okay, stop putting money in there.
The FBI says scams like that cost Americans $333 million this year, 10 times the amount from 2021.
Now let's get to the market numbers report this morning, brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They're online at beaconcm.com. Once again, here's Jim Ryan.
Stocks are stumbling into the final day of the year, having posted 3 consecutive daily losses. The Dow on Tuesday gave up 95 points to close at 48,367. The S&P slipped 0.14%. The Nasdaq Composite surrendered 0.25%. When the Fed met this month and decided to cut interest rates, several board governors were on the fence right up to the end. Minutes of the Fed's meeting show several wanted to leave interest rates alone to wait for more economic data. Millions of SNAP recipients are about to face new limitations on what they can buy, including bans on soda, energy drinks, and candy. The Department of Agriculture says 18 states will implement new food stamp restrictions starting in January. There's been another European heist. Thieves drilled their way into the vault of a German retail bank last weekend and stole nearly $12 million worth of money and valuables from customers' safe deposit boxes.
Stocks are mixed now this morning. The Dow down 12, the S&P, however, up 2, and the Nasdaq also up 15.5. That's the latest news. We've got traffic and weather next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. We do have some traffic incidents now. However, none of them really appear to be negatively affecting traffic all that much. But here we go. We've got a crash 4th Avenue South at McCann Street. Also in Madison now, Gallatin Pike South at Webster Street. In the Cool Springs area, the right shoulder block, we've got a stalled vehicle 65 North at Moores Lane. And also downtown Nashville, James Robertson Parkway at 2nd Avenue North, a crash reported there. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 37 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on this New Year's Eve day. It's the last day of 2025, wrapping this one up and putting it to bed and starting a new one fresh, starting after midnight tonight. This is the time in the show where Chris Hand joins us and Sam joins us, and maybe we can invite Jay Harper to join us as well as we discuss this, that, and the other. Nothing of importance, but, interesting stuff. How you doing this morning there, Chris?
I'm good, man. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Sam is with us. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Brian. It's been a wonderful show.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And is Jay Harper available?
You betcha. I would never miss an opportunity to chat with Brian Wilson.
Well, I should mention the reason that Jay Harper is in today is not because Joan is off. It's that she's filling in for Chad Benson later today.
Joan is an underrated host. She does a fantastic job. We're really lucky. We got the best roster in talk radio.
Yeah,
when it comes
got
to
some great talent to this station.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, I want to start out this by throwing this out for the group to chew over. Looney George Clooney has apparently become a French citizen. Have you heard this?
Looney George Clooney. First of all, the nickname is top notch, A++. Looney George Clooney. I did hear that he became a citizen of France.
George and Amal Clooney, along with their twin daughters Ella and Alexandria, awarded French citizenship on Friday. It came in a big naturalization decree. Their names were there. Apparently, they have had a farm there since 2021. And Clooney says and I'm going to call on this. He says, "Well, we just wanted to get out of Hollywood. We didn't think it was a good environment for our kids." That's a bunch of horse manure. If you want to get away from Hollywood, there's a big, bold country here, a lot of beautiful countryside, a lot of wonderful people. You can get away from Hollywood without having to go to France or his villa in Lake Como.
100%. However, there is some truth to keeping kids away from the Hollywood stuff.
I don't have any problem with that, but a lot of stars have moved out of Hollywood.
Yeah, you're right. And you don't even need to be there anymore. It's not like it was a few decades ago.
Well, he's got a jet. He can be there in anywhere in the country. He can be there in 3 hours.
Yeah, no, and he's proven that time and time again, taking that jet to places to yell about climate change. So
yeah.
I love the complaining about America, but I'm going to move to the countryside of France. I wonder why they wouldn't want to live in Paris.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. I don't know, but I mean, what's interesting is that nobody really knows. I don't know if you can have dual citizenship if you're a citizen of France.
I don't know. Worth a Google for sure.
Yeah, let's Google that up while we're...
It's just wild. He's moving to a country with so much freedom that they have canceled their New Year's Eve celebrations in Paris.
Yep, I know. It says in the story, and I found it in thehill.com, it's not clear whether George Clooney has kept his American citizenship.
You know he hung on to that, just like Rosie probably hung on to hers as well.
Yeah, if he could.
Everybody knows that that's the plan B. Come back to America, right?
Yeah, I'd say this is not about getting out of Hollywood. It's TDS is all it is.
You're absolutely right. It's a bad case of TDS.
A very expensive virtue signaling.
Yeah.
I don't know. Beyonce's a billionaire. Did you know that?
Ugh.
I know.
Yeah.
So
she's not the best.
Here are the musical stars who are now worth at least $1 billion with a B dollars. It's a pretty tight list. Beyonce, her husband Jay-Z, so a couple of billionaires. Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Bruce Springsteen. That's it.
Kanye used to be on the list before the meltdown this year.
That's what I said.
Yeah. She made $600 million in her 2023 Renaissance World Tour, and added to that, the Cowboy Carter Tour was the highest grossing of 25, making $400 million in ticket sales, $50 million in Beyonce merchandise. And she probably had some money to begin with, so that's well over, $1 billion. So
she probably got a good chunk of change broken off by the Kamala Harris campaign as well for that endorsement and no performance. You remember that? How embarrassing was that? I had friends at that rally. They were like, people were booing and leaving because they were promised a Beyonce performance.
Yeah, and Beyonce said, "I never said I was going to be there."
My gosh,
that was just a dirty trick pulled by the Democrats to get people to watch.
Yeah, you're
on
absolutely
television
right.
because people weren't interested.
No.
Well, let's tell them Beyonce's going to be here. That'll get them in.
Yep.
I don't know. Just a mess.
They didn't even stick around for Kamala's speech. It was awesome.
Yeah. I got another one here. This is a story from frontpagemag.com. MSNBC, which is now MS Now, has had a ratings crash since they rebranded. They have lost, and they didn't have much to lose to begin with. They have lost 39% of their market. 39%. That's devastating.
Well, but they went in with the rebrand, and then they didn't change anything about the programming style. They are continuing to do the same bovine scatology that they have been doing for years.
I know. I do check out the MS Now website just to find out what the other side is saying, so that when you're talking about things. I find it, so it is all about TDS. It is a receptacle where people who have TDS can go and be told the things that they want to hear. It's all going to be okay, and Democrats are not bad or crazy or any of that. And it's all anti-Trump, 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 anti-Trump. It's a one-note channel, and I think people are tired of that.
They have been sprinkling in though recently some. Will someone please think of the Somalis? So that's been a nice change of pace.
I know. Well, you know how Trump takes the 80% position, and the Democrats are forced to take the 20%?
Yes.
That's what they do. They are the receptacle of that 20%.
Yep.
They are a news source for the 20% who just, take the most reprehensible positions because they are opposite of what Donald Trump has done. It's nuts. On the other hand, CNN is down 19%. Down 15%. And in the demo, the all-important demo, we have more listeners on this radio station on a good ratings day than CNN has watching in the demo nationwide.
It's insane.
About 105,000 demo viewers.
And the thing is like if they just made a couple of tweaks, if they just got a little bit more balanced, you could see some success, and we're seeing that played out in front of us with the launch and the emergence of News Nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that. It wouldn't take much. I think CNN could be fixed in about a week, but I think probably what you'd have to do is get shed of all of your talent, or a lot of your talent.
Yeah.
And start over, because I just think I think that's the thing that CNN has never wanted to do, is let go of the left-leaning talent and get some people in there who understand the concept of journalism, which is fair and balanced. The old joke, the old thing we used to say at Fox, it wasn't a joke. We took it very seriously. We report, you decide. Lay it out there. Give them give them this position, give them the other position, and say, here, America, you decide what is best. And that has worked for them. It's true that they do have opinion shows that are right of center. There's no doubt about that. But their news coverage, I always found, is pretty up the middle. You want to know where bias comes in? This is the thing that most people don't understand about television news organizations. And having worked in that business for a lot of years, I think it's something that I've only recently realized. If you really want to control the content of your cable news operation or your news operation, it's done at the assignment desk. In other words, you got these reporters, and they're going to go out and report, but you decide what kind of stories they're going to be assigned to. And that's where I think a lot of bias creeps in. Some of it is just blatant bias, but some of it is because they are told to cover certain kinds of stories. And this happens in newsrooms all over the country, including quite a few here in Nashville.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, this isn't something exclusive to the big guys like CNN. We see that here at all sorts of local news outlets.
Yeah. All right, Jay, any thoughts on that?
Well, again, the whole bias thing, I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, the mainstream media has been this way most of my adult life, certainly, but I think the advent of these cable news channels has just kind of stretched that out even more so. In terms of the left-leaning bias.
It's interesting. They got this woman named Barry Weiss, who's now the lead person over at CBS News.
Yeah.
And brought in to bring balance to their reporting. I mean, reportedly, one of the first things she wanted to do was try and hire Brett Baer over at Fox News, but apparently he's under contract long-term, and that's not going to be possible. But, I mean, she's gotten nothing but unmitigated grief for trying to bring balance to a very left-leaning news organization.
Yeah, and you see that she's swimming upstream. I mean, just yesterday, CBS released a report where they went to Minneapolis and they debunked Nick Shirley, and it's like, but you didn't actually debunk anything. You debunked nothing. Your source was "Trust me, bro," and that's not a source for CBS News. But locally, I'm surprised that there hasn't been a company that says, okay, we're not going to go full right wing, but we are going to lean to the right. And I think that they would see them become the number one station here in Middle Tennessee if they would watch that. If they would take that stance.
I think Fox 17 just has to take a couple steps to the right, and they're there. They do a much better job objectively. They were up in the front of Dr. Adrian Battle, one to ask questions, and they got the response of, we don't talk to Sinclair. From their spokesperson in the school board district. So I think it's a infiltration of confirmation bias into the management system in when it comes to these corporate news entities. People have a predetermined notion and set of beliefs that they believe is part of an agenda that they need to push, and that's what we end up with.
Well, and don't forget Sinclair, their parent company, was the one. Remember the big viral video during COVID where they were talking about misinformation being a threat to our democracy, and you had the 1,000 different news stations saying the exact same thing? That was Sinclair.
Yeah, all on the script like that. That was eye-opening for people to realize that you're not getting necessarily locally sourced news all the time.
Yeah. But was it not a lot of the Sinclair stations that elected not to run the Jimmy Kimmel's show? After
true. For a day or two.
Yeah.
They folded like a cheap suit on that one.
In CBS, I guess Barry Weiss taking some heat for pulling back that 60 Minutes report.
I've been in news organizations where you're working on an investigative piece. And it might clear past the lawyers because the lawyers are looking for libel, right? That's all they're concerned about. Am I going to be in a court of law defending this reporting? And you can clear the legal hurdles, but that doesn't mean that it's editorially balanced on any level whatsoever. So she, as the person in charge, says this report needs balance. For example, They came out and they were 4 statements from the Trump administration. None of them were in the report. None of them. How can you reach out to try to bring balance and then not put it in the story? And all she said was, we need to work this over, and it's not ready for air yet. I've had bosses do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you would have thought that, she was, committing a crime.
Literally,
the way they reacted.
literally Hitler.
Yeah, I know. That's an example of how difficult it is to turn around a news organization as long as you keep the existing talent in place. I don't know how you change it.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
I don't know. I don't see any big answers there. I want to end with some fun stuff here.
Let's do it.
As we head into 2026. Amazon, they'll bring anything to your door. And there's a story in foxnews.com that I found hilarious. It says that here are the 22 weirdest things you can buy on Amazon. Now, some of them I didn't think were all that weird, but some are really very strange. Do you know that for $39.99 you can get a toy called a Shock-tato?
A Shock-tato?
A Shock-tato. It's a plastic potato, but it has sort of metal sensors on the outside of her, and then you toss it back and forth.
Like a game of hot potato.
And like it's a hot potato. And then at some point, as you're pitching it back and forth, it will shock you.
It sounds awesome, actually.
I can't imagine. Yeah, let's get that toy where we shock each other.
I have 2 boys in my life that I think would sign up for that lightning fast. I can't. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, here's what you need. I'm surprised you didn't get this in your stocking for Christmas, Chris, or any of you guys. For $9.99, a yodeling pickle.
Okay. I would like to thank Santa and the elves for not sending that to my home.
You can get a full-sized refrigerated vending machine sent to your home for $4,399.
Oh, it's a bargain.
Yeah. Who doesn't want one of those in the garage?
That's a really expensive way to get your beer.
Yeah. And here's a good one. Nothing. For $14.99, it's when somebody says, "Oh, I don't need anything. Don't give me anything. I don't want I don't need anything. Don't give me nothing." Well, it's a package of nothing.
Oh.
It's just an air. It's got a bubble, clear bubble with nothing in it.
It should at least have a meme of Gene Wilder from Willy Wonka saying, "You get nothing."
That's hilarious.
I know. People will literally buy. I mean, it's like the pet rock. People will buy anything. They really will. Chris, very quickly before our time runs out, what you got coming up in the next show?
Well, we are going to be yelling about the Somalis once again. Once again, we're going to be yelling about the Somalis. I don't want to disappoint. People have come to be really looking forward to yelling about Somalis, so we will yell about the Somalis. We'll also talk about some of the biggest stories in 2025. And at the top of the hour, I have a very, very special guest in studio.
Oh, really?
I do.
Oh, man. I can't wait.
It's a surprise.
All right. Well, it keeps people tuned in. If you tell them it's, a tease doesn't deliver, it only promises to deliver.
Amen.
Oh, listen, thank you so much for being with us here on the show today. I will see you at some point next year. Have a great 2025 and a good kickoff to 2026. It is 53 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock.
Coming up at the top of the hour, federal daycare funding in Minnesota taking a hit. Also, Venezuela taking a different kind of hit. We'll explain that. That's all coming up at 9 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.